to stay.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Boards, a podcast dedicated to the actions and interests of skaters beyond skateboarding. My guest today, Kelly Bird, grew up in Houston, Texas, where he started skating in the mid-80s. After a solid 5-year run as a pro skater, riding for brands such as Circle A, New School, and Real in the early 90s, Kelly transitioned into marketing and team management at DC Shoes. He moved over to Lakai shortly after it started in 1999, where he spent the following 15 years as team, then brand manager, before eventually joining Nike SB in 2015, where he has been working as global brand manager for the past 10 years. By the time this interview comes out, Kelly will have realized another dream of his, integrating into Nike's global basketball brand team. So here's my conversation with Kelly. I hope you'll enjoy it. Let's start with this one from Aaron Meza. So let's see, he said, when you were a kid, who was your favorite to watch at the Houston Shut Up and Skate contests? And then he also asked, maybe we can get to that part after, but he said, what was San Francisco like when he came there after that realtor was Salman? What was the vibe? What did you think of the scene? Who was friendly right at the gate? Who was not?
Man, okay, so yeah, skate park at Houston days. So yeah, that was like obviously a pretty integral part of like, I guess the beginning of the whole process of this thing. But yeah, it was all vert ramps and like some type of mini ramp. It was obviously like the early onset of like, you know, I guess what you would call modern street skating. So we'd go there all the time, and obviously they had those big shut up and skate contests. But as far as like people that stood out to me right away, it's funny because Sal just did like a nightclub, and he talks about like this person, but like this guy, his name was Brian Pennington, and he was I think he had like in that moment I think a lot of people were like comparing him to like people that are like, you know, the greats of vert, but he just had this natural ability. Like it was one of those things where like every time he skated, you just were watching something like being invented in real time. Oh wow! I mean, it was just like that early like the magic of skating, I guess, just seeing it like kind of in front of your face, where you're just like, wow, like if you can dream it, you can do it type thing. Yeah. And just watching stuff, and clearly like there wasn't a lot of video, like there wasn't a lot of like coverage of skating at that time. So to be able to go and just watch like literally almost every session, like something you'd never heard of or seen like happening in front of your eyes was like pretty phenomenal. And obviously just kind of like showed the infinite possibility, whatever, just that if you can dream it, you can do it type thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I would say it's him. I mean, there were definitely other great skaters there, but he's the one that like really stood out in that regard. Yeah. And it's funny because there's not even like a lot of like, if you try to search for footage of him, like I don't even really think that much stuff comes up, which maybe like adds to the lore a bit. But yeah, it was him, I would say. And you know, for a lot of us, I think this is also something Sal talked about, is like, you were just watching vert skaters. So like that's a lot of what, you know, I think that's a lot of what early street skating was, is just watching what was happening on vert and like trying to adapt it like to the streets, right?
Exactly, yeah, sure.
So yeah, that was kind of our world at that point.
Do you remember what year you started and how old you were?
I started probably
like mid 80s, around there?
84, yeah, 84, 85, like around, yeah, probably then. Because there was like literally, there was a shop in my neighborhood that opened up, like a little surf shop thing. I mean, I lived in like the suburbs of Houston, so it was like, I mean, it was like the 80s in the suburbs of Houston. And like skating was going through like a little bit of a boom at that point. So that's how it hits a place like that at that moment in time. But certainly it wasn't like a hotbed of skateboarding. Yeah. So like just like by happenstance, like a little surf shop opened up that sold boards. I had like been like a kid. It was like, you know, quintessential kid comes back from California with the skateboard at the apartments. Like everybody's like, this is amazing. And then, like I said, just coincidentally, the surf shop opened up like not that long after that. So that's how kind of everything started. Okay. And then, yeah, I just, you know, I was like not big in school, and it's like, you know, it's Texas. Everybody's trying to play football out there. That was not going to be my thing. And so like, yeah, once skating hit the radar, then I was just like, all right, this is cool. Like you know, like for all the reasons people fall in love with skating. And so that was that. So yeah, the two videos at the shop were Vision Skate Escape or Skate Visions and Bones Brigade video show. So that's how that literally like the onset of like, you know, skateboarding home video.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely at the forefront.
And so, what about the second part of his question about SF, like coming there?
Yeah.
Do you remember what? I'm not sure, because I know you moved around quite a bit in the early years of your career. I think at some point you settled down a little bit in San Diego and also in SF. I know you stopped by Toronto also for a little bit, but you were kind of on the move a lot. So when did you go to San Francisco? And yeah, I guess what was kind of your introduction to the city?
Yeah, so there's a lot and it's funny because everything you just said was like maybe the span of 4-ish years. So, I mean, but that's how everything moved so quick then. And, you know, a year felt like 5 years for a lot of reasons. So, but like how I ended up in San Francisco, I mean, you got to go back a ways. So I'm at the skate park. I think at this time I'd graduated high school. I'd gone to university for a couple years. But was still coming home every summer and like spending a lot of time at the skate park. I think I even like lived at the park for one of those summers. Yeah. These dudes from Toronto, so Weiss, Spokema, and Thomas Morgan were like coming down to the skate park in Houston. And I had gotten some traction already through like another guy that was like coming to Houston from Arizona, this guy named Jamar Parrish. He like kind of had a hookup with Circle A Skateboards. So like I kind of was like getting like a little bit of product from them. And then that crew came down and they had bought a car and they were like, hey, we're going to California. And so I went to California with them. Maybe also too, like, yeah, like I said, a lot's kind of mashed together. So I was like definitely getting boards. That's what it was. I went to California with those guys. It was part of like the Circle A thing. I actually was like staying with Bob Schmelzer for a minute. And then Circle A eventually turned into Poorhouse. But like when I went to California with that, like Thomas Weiss and that crew, I ended up just like saying, okay, I'm going to stay out here for a minute. Started meeting some people. Ended up meeting Ronnie Bertino and Adam McNatt. So I kind of stayed. So I ended up staying there and like whatever, just skating with those guys for a bit. And then that was when Alva was transitioning to New School. And so like those guys were part of that. And so I just kind of like by virtue of being around there was like, oh, this is cool. And these guys are insane. I mean, dude, talk about like seeing somebody else like magic in real time, like Ronnie Bertino, like that guy, like at that era, like anybody that was in that era will tell you that he like seeing him live was pretty magic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so ended up being there, like that San Clemente area for a while. I think I lived there and worked in like that warehouse for a bit, was in some of those early New School videos. Then I went back to Texas for a minute. And then what I ended up doing was going to Toronto because I had met Justin and Bill and all those guys. I ended up going to Toronto and they had just opened a skate park there. And I lived, kind of couch surfed up there with some people for, I don't know, call it like 6 or 8 months. And what happened, so the moment you're like we're trying to get to is at that skate park. It was called Rudy's Skate Park. Also like magical moment in time. Solomon came to do a demo there. Okay. And so he and there was like a big PAL contest like in that time where like me and Thomas went to California. We went to Santa Barbara. There was like a super famous PAL contest. And I had kind of crossed paths with Solomon there, but not in a way that was like definitive or anything. But like, then he shows up in Toronto and we kind of reconnect there. And I've been skating that park and I think had like amassed a decent amount of footage. And I think I gave it to him or like maybe I sent it to Jeff Clint's house like later. And anyway, he kind of went back and was like, hey, let's talk to Kelly, like see if there's something here. And so they were like, okay, cool. We see your stuff. Solomon's interested in you, like being a part of this, like come to the Bay. So I actually went from Toronto to San Jose and I stayed with Solomon for a minute. And I don't even know if we had we hadn't really gone on tour yet. Like I was staying at Solomon's because I remember showing up to SF with Solomon. I definitely remember the day like we went to Embarcadero. I had like maybe like we went to Deluxe and like got some boards and went to Embarcadero. And I think I had already told Falhy at New School that I was like gonna like just give this a go. Yeah. And so I was kind of all in. And I don't like, obviously the things that were, you know, like Embarcadero was hitting the radar shit, like questionable I don't think questionable had come out yet. It was like maybe right before questionable was going to come out. But like stuff was bubbling up from Embarcadero, like those early Real ads, like the Henry ad, like stuff was happening. Well, that was SF State, but like anyway, so you just saw stuff like coming out of there, so you knew like it was whatever. You knew it was kind of the epicenter of like what was happening in modern street skating.
Sure.
So yeah, I remember seeing Javante and being like, whatever, you know, I was always a big fan of Javante just from like all those early Planet Earth videos. So I remember seeing him and just like tripping out. I remember seeing Mike, you know, all the like standard players. It was like cool, but like I didn't feel, and maybe it was just like, I don't know, naivety or like, I don't know what it was, but I didn't roll up there feeling like I should be like intimidated or sketched out. Yeah. It was just cool. And so, yeah, I think like maybe by virtue of that, I just kind of was like myself and wasn't trying to like, I don't know, like I just kind of rolled up as myself and was not trying to like, whatever,
impress
just be like yeah. And maybe, but I will say like right away, like I met James that day for sure. And I guess I didn't even really realize, I guess I didn't really realize even at that moment, like how integral like that interaction was to things, but like it was cool. I think we like kind of hit it off. And then I ended up staying at Jeff Clint's house after that because Solomon was in San Jose, and it was just like I just think like Jeff kind of offered for he had a place by DMV off to Visadero, and so like he was just like, yeah, you can stay with me. So like that's kind of how it started. I was staying at Jeff's, and I remember there was literally like no furniture in the apartment, but I was there, and then I went skating with Jim. And then we went to Wallenberg, and I hurt my ankle pretty bad. So I remember like early on being like, fuck, I had this tape of footage that was cool. I was meeting people, but then I hurt my ankle pretty bad. And I'm just kind of sitting at Jeff's house, not doing a lot. And I remember James called, maybe looking for Jeff. Okay. And we hadn't maybe even seen each other that much since the Embarcadero thing. And then we just started talking, and we hit it off again. I don't even know like what we talked about, but like it was like maybe more than skating, and I think like maybe we just realized we had a lot in common because he's from Ohio, you know, like he'd been in SF, but like I think like he grew up in Ohio, so like I don't know, we just kind of like had some of that like similar interests from growing up in those places. I mean, I would say football is like one of those things. Like, I mean, I think to this day, that's the thing he and I like will still hit each other up about is football. So it's like kind of this funny, like weird full circle irony is like you get into skating because you're not like playing football, but like somehow that's the thing.
Yeah.
So whatever. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely the person that like I think when I hit it off with him, that then everything started to happen like pretty quickly. And then yeah, like whatever. Everybody else was like cool and easy. Like, you know, it's like with Sean, Edward, Sluggo, you know, Jim and Tommy. Tommy did a lot to help me. Like I remember staying with Tommy like for a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, it was, I think everything, like, it was just one of those things that you did at that point where you kind of met everybody, hung out for a while, did the test drive, got in the van. How are you, you know, can you hang? Like, are you going to blow it in the van type deal? And yeah. And then it just kind of all kind of clicked from there. But I mean, in terms of like who, like people giving me a hard time, nothing stands out to me where like I like being like overly hazed, you know what I mean? Like obviously all the, you know, when like York and Carroll and those guys were younger, they were pretty full on, like they'd give it to, you know, but like in a funny way, but like they, you know, they were just like, they'd needle you pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So that I remember those guys just constantly like, you know, spitballs and fucking Carl's Jr. just like constantly like that kind of shit, Snapple cap in your ear, you know, like they were always doing that kind of shit, but like never just like out, you know, like nobody was like just outwardly being an asshole to be an asshole. Yeah. I'm sure that you know, I would imagine people had that experience, but like, you know, I like it. Luckily for me, like I've managed to, just not kook it, not kook it hard enough to like merit that type of experience, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously a magical moment in time. Clearly, it's still pretty highly celebrated today, like 30 plus years later. So yeah, I'm pretty fortunate to have been there and experienced it in real time.
Was it quick between when you first got in the van and, you know, started blending with all these guys and meeting everybody? And how long did it take for you to actually get on the team and get your first pro board and everything?
It doesn't seem like it took that long. It was probably was there, got on the team. We went on the tour that I think maybe Aaron's referencing, where it was just this crazy, like, just quintessential skate tour at that time where you just started in SF and we were on the road for like pretty much an entire summer. And people would come in and out of the tour, but there was like a core group of people that like stayed on the entire thing. And I was definitely one of those people. And Dave Meddy was like the TM at the time and filming. And that, like a lot of like what's in the real video came from that tour.
Okay.
But I think like after that tour, you know, it's one of those things where like you do the tour and like, I don't know if the shops start calling and are like, are you going to put this board out? Then I think like it gets more serious. That was like maybe another like one of the like sort of litmus tests, I guess, was like, can you get out there? One, can you hang? Can you be in the van and not kook it? But then can you like get the shops like stoked enough
excited
to like
and
start hit and so like I guess it all gelled. And then I would say so probably end to end, like after that tour, I don't know, 6 to 9 months maybe. It wasn't a long time. But again, at that point in time, shit felt like it was changing every month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like 6 to 9 months felt like an eternity because like just so much stuff was happening. Like, you know, in real time, it was like a new mag would come out, just a mind-blowing amount of new shit. Oh, here comes another video, mind-blowing amount of it. So like the progression of it at that moment in time was like nuts. So like 6 to 9 months could feel like, you know, 3 to 5 years.
For sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard it like plenty of times, but like, you know, if you got 5 years out of a pro skate career at that point, like it felt like you had just like, I mean, it was like, because everything was just the turnover was so quick. It was just like, you know, and I think in hindsight, that was like probably, you know, that led to a lot of brands being created that were like, this should not be the ethos of this thing where like you're disposable, like once you hit like your early to mid 20s.
Yeah.
And so like, that was obviously the downside of it, but like the progression that came with that, because I think people felt like this is all the time I got. And then I have to hit the real world. You know what I mean? Like, because there was just like, no, you know, it was like, there was, I guess,
no future for
it just the quote unquote industry, like, was maybe not, I don't know, it wasn't as developed, and it just didn't feel like, you know, there was a handful of players, and like, those players were the ones that were like, okay, yeah, you're in, like, tap in, and then like, all right, your time's up.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes the new guy. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. If you got 5 years, like it felt like an eternity. I mean, obviously, like people figured out that wasn't like you know could meaningfully contribute like well into, you know, like, I mean, shit, you got guys that are from that era that are still meaningfully contributing to skating. So yeah.
But for that time, like, I mean, a 25-year-old in the early 90s could not imagine being a still
and
a
I always
skater
felt
in their
old.
mid-40s.
Like, I will say that. I always had, like, that thing where it was always this thing where it's like, I don't know, am I too old to be doing, you know, like, for a lot of, like, even, like, you know, your family's like, I don't know, what are you doing? Like, really? You're leaving school to do this thing? Like, are you sure that's the right thing? And so you have that in your head. And then, you know, like, there's kids that are, like, you know, 8, 10, 12 years younger than you. And so, like, you can get in your head in that regard a lot. So, like, the age thing was always, like, I don't know, like, it was definitely a factor in terms of, like, feeling like you needed to hurry up and get it done.
Yeah, exactly. How old were you when you retired from pro skating in 95, right? So how old were you in 95?
I would say more 97, because I started working at DC, and it's funny. I always kind of thought it was 95 because, like, you know, like, the longer you go, the more shit just to kind of like mashes together in like weird chunks of time. And then I was like, well, no, wait, I started working at DC in 97, like kind of the summer of 97. And that's when I moved from, because I was in SF. I had moved back to SF for a minute at that point. And so I remember coming back down like around like, you know, the summer of 97, actually kind of living with Ken Block for a little while before like I got my own place. But there was a real video that came out around, I think it was it the Ride On video? There's a real video that I have like a little bit of, like, I have like a small little bit of footage in, and it came out like around 97. So in my mind, I was like, well, that's like, it was like, pretty puzzling to me recently. I was like, wait, I kind of had like some stuff in this video, but then like, I know I was working at DC, like right in this time frame. So, but yeah, I was like in my mid 20s, like at that point. So like, again, felt like, like, whoa, I really milked this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like in my mid 20s and like still out here doing this. Like, I really like, I gotta like lock in and like get into life now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe like in hindsight, like, I don't know, everything happened the way it was supposed to happen for me. Like, I will just say that, like, sure, maybe, I mean, if I even look to now, like I'm skating again, like a decent amount and like, whatever, just like it feels fun and cool. And I'm like doing stuff I never did before. So like, if I wasn't in my own head so much at that point, I'm like, yeah, I probably could have done a lot more, but like, whatever, it's fine. It's all relative. And like, honestly, it means more to me to be doing what I'm doing now than it probably would have meant at that point anyway. Like me getting on the path then has led me to where I am now from like a work standpoint. So like I said, it all happened the way it was supposed to happen, but like, yeah. Could I have squeezed more years out of it? I probably could have. Would it have meant a whole lot more? Who really knows?
Mm-hmm. Let's do this next one from Dave Swift.
Swifty.
He said, being a Texan, did you ever run across anyone that messed with Texas?
Oh, man. God, I remember a pretty funny, like, mess with Texas thing, I guess, if you want to like just like rehash a funny story, and hopefully like it's like maybe water under the bridge at this point, but like I remember that like, it was like it was some shut up and skate thing, I think, and some of the Florida street guys were there, so like I think it was like Bo and Scott and Lance, and there was like a young Gentry, maybe Crumb, a guy named Billy Smith, maybe. Anyway, it was like a night out, like at a shut up and skate thing. And I don't know, like it was maybe somebody's house or at a bar or party or something. Anyway, like there was something between like Gentry and like Bo and Scott. And at that point, like those guys, like that was their whole thing. You know what I mean? Like they were, I think anybody growing up in that era, like in those parts of the country, like you just had this thing where people were constantly messing with you. And so you had it, like whatever, especially if like you're in the streets, like you're just having to deal with like people just constantly trying to do stuff. So like I think those guys, by virtue of having to deal with a lot of that in Florida, like had a reputation for just like being scrappy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember like something happened at a party, and then it boiled over to the skate park the next day, and it was like definitely a thing that like whatever, people were just like tripping on it because you had like a young Gentry who was like definitely on the come up at the park in Houston that moment, and then like guys like Bo and Scott, and then his brother Lance, obviously, who was like pretty on the radar for Pal. So I remember that. I mean, whatever, like that's like a real like direct like answer, I guess. But like I do remember that as like, whoa, this is crazy, because I like never really, obviously there's all kinds of like little stuff you deal with as a kid, but like never really seen it like happen between, I guess, like people and people you like are starting to like see come up. So it was like, yeah, whatever. Like I guess that was a mess with Texas moment. And like I said, I'm pretty like I'm fairly certain it's water under the bridge at this point, but I definitely remember that being I guess what you would call like a mess with Texas moment. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like yeah, I think Texas held its own pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned this guy a few minutes ago, Thomas Morgan.
Oh, sick.
Let's see. He said, can you ask Kelly about a road trip we took in a 1973 Mercury Cougar that we bought for $500 in the early 90s? And then he wrote Toronto to Tampa to Houston to San Diego back to Toronto.
Yep. So that's the trip.
Yeah, that's the trip we were talking about.
That's the trip I talked about. And like, it was him, Weiss, Bokma, and then this kid Simon, who I think had bought the car actually. And yeah, they drove. I don't remember going to Tampa, if I'm being honest. Maybe they went to Tampa before. I think they maybe went from Toronto to Tampa and then came to Houston and got me.
They picked you up in Houston. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
But then, we drove to San Diego because I think, like I said, at that point, I was like, I just had like enough like connections between like the Circle A thing and maybe like getting stuff going with like the new school Falahy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I do remember about that trip, and like I said, like some things like mashed together, so like maybe my timeline's going to be off on certain things. But what I do remember on that trip is staying at John Fallahy's house, and it was us. And Fallahy was like, okay, he had young kids at that point, you know, like he was like way advanced compared to like where we were in our lives. So he had young kids going to school, and his wife was like, I think okay with us staying there, but not like over the moon about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we'd just do like classic skate stuff where like we'd be out all night and then we'd come back to the house like pretty late, and the kids are, you know, their kids have got to go to school the next day. So I don't know what happened where like some of us were able to, and maybe he was like, you guys can, you know, a couple of you can stay here, but the others of you can't. And so like, anyway, like a few of us ended up in the house, like on one of the nights. And then Weiss and Justin, he had like this Astro van. They fell asleep in the Astro van, right?
Okay.
And the kids come out to go to school the next morning and open the van, and it's Weiss and Justin passed out in the van, and the kids lost it, like completely lost it, running back inside, tripping out. So it's this whole scene, like wife not hyped, and I think like that next day we were out. He was like, dude, you guys gotta bounce, like you guys are out. And then shortly after that is when we went to the Santa Barbara, and then it might have gone from there to the Santa Barbara contest. And that's where the Solomon interaction happened.
Right, yeah.
Where I met Solomon. And then I either went back to Toronto with them for a minute, or I went back to Texas and then went to Toronto after. But I know like that trip was certainly like the impetus for me ending up in Toronto, because I was like, these guys are great. You know, they're talking about this park that's going to open in Toronto, so I'm going to end up there. And that's, I think I went back to Texas, and then I drove to Toronto with the guy that I'd skated with in Texas for a while. And then I think I stayed there after that.
Okay.
But yeah, that trip was insane. I mean, just the willingness, I mean, that was just like what it was. Like you just were so down for the dream. Like you were just going to try to do anything to materialize it. So to jump in a car with next to nothing with guys that were, Weiss was kind of living the dream, right? Like he'd won maybe like an NSA finals or done really well in an NSA final. So he was like kind of, he had some traction.
Yeah.
Maybe even Thomas as well. I think the workshop was like maybe in its early iteration at that point. And so, but yeah, it's just like, yeah, you were so down for the dream that like that's what you would do. It's just like dive into the unknown like that and just like take it as it came and whatever. Yeah, it was a good time. It was fun. That trip, like still to this day, like I actually think about that trip quite a bit, because it was so like there was so much serendipity on that trip that ended up being like what essentially set me on the path, you know, that brought me to where I am today. If it wasn't for that trip, like I don't know if I, you know, like it's hard to say like if I'd be where I'm at without going on that trip. So sure. Shout out to Thomas and Weiss for sparking it. I also remember those guys cutting the roof, like cutting a sunroof in the top of the car in the parking lot of skate park at Houston, and I think like it was like maybe duct taped on at some point, and maybe blew off on like a high whatever, just like something so sketchy and dangerous.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, a lot of shenanigans on that trip for sure. It was fun. It was amazing, and amazing that you like got to Thomas. That's rad. Yeah, I go to Toronto like every summer, and I end up kind of like outside the city, so it's like really hard to like just get into the city and link up with people. But every time I'm there, I'm like, I gotta find Thomas, and then it just never happens. So stoked you found him.
You just mentioned Bill Weiss. He also shared a question, and on that same topic, he said, "What was it like skating and hanging with the Toronto crew? You skated a lot with Justin Bachma. What were some of your favorite sessions?" Yeah.
I mean, the Toronto crew was awesome because, like, I think they had this similar thing where they were not afraid to have fun, you know? Like, they were a fun crew to be around. And so I think, like, I think that was also, like, one of the hallmarks of, like, just the Texas vert crew especially. Like, they were pretty notorious for their, like, after-hours activity, you know, just, like, the after-hours activities. Uh-huh. So I think there was, like, maybe some synergy there. And then, yeah, just being in Toronto, like, it was... I mean, not that Houston's like a small city, but like Toronto just felt like it was the first city I went to where I was like, this feels, I don't know, it felt very European. I'd never been to Europe at that point, but I was like, like something feels different about it. You know what I mean? You know, you're in a place like Houston that's like I mean, even then, just like conservative in so many ways. And then you're the skater that's like not, you know, you're totally outside the norm of like everything that's there. So you're just constantly dealing with that bullshit. And so to go to a place like Toronto that was similar in size, but just, I don't know, to me felt like more, it just felt more European. And so like, I love that about Toronto, and like also, you know, it was an amazing mix of people. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just such a fun time. Like, and also at that point in time, like the dollar was like, you know, it was like 2x to the Canadian dollar. So you could go up there and it was this rad, beautiful city, and your dollar's going twice as far. So like that, I always remember that being like a big intrigue of like, I could just go to Canada and like, I'm balling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I did that for a while. And then, yeah, just like all those guys were awesome and killing it. And yeah, Justin was like another one of those like phenomenal, just like natural talents that like he didn't have to try that hard to be able to do like the coolest shit and just look really good and powerful doing it. A constant fun. And like I never saw, like he's just that guy that was just always like good energy. And he actually came and stayed with me in San Francisco. Kind of once I had gotten established there, like he came and stayed, and that's where he ended up with that Transworld cover on Hubba, was from that trip. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the people that like you always wanted to see like do well, and like he had kind of like this, you know, that early ATV thing too, where he could just skate anything. He had crazy pop, and so like yeah, just super naturally gifted, well rounded, and yeah, I mean, you just wanted people to be able to see like that ability, and people definitely did. Like, you know, he ended up riding for he rode for some pretty decent companies and like got, you know, a pretty whatever. He had like a good little moment. Yeah. And I think when you see stuff of him, it's like pretty timeless. But yeah, I mean, dude, he was he was fun. He was good energy. Yeah. Just one of those, like, kind of you had to see it, like, it just, you know, you had to be there to see it, like, to really get it. You had to see it happen, you know, but like, yeah, just gifted, just like totally one of those people that, you know, like they just have it. And he was certainly one of those people. Yeah, missed the dude. Yeah, so yeah, rest in peace, Justin.
Let's see. This one's from Tony Ferguson. He said,
full Canadian gamut here. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. We were on one of the first US Real tours together, and it was crazy. He will have so many stories, but one that comes to mind to ask him about is the Just Crash story.
There's 3 stories from that tour with Tony that are like, and that's that tour that I said, like when I went to SF and then we got in the van pretty shortly after and did that crazy cross-country tour. It was literally like, I swear we probably went to 40 shops on that tour. And the deal was you get to the shop, they're supposed to give you enough money to get to the next shop, feed you, and give you a place to stay for the night. Okay. With no real mandate on like what the meal should look like and what the accommodation should look like. You know what I mean? And he was definitely one of the people that was on the whole tour. Well, actually, one of the first ones is we stayed at a place in Nevada. It was either Elko or a town called Winnemucca, Nevada. And it was a shop, I think, called World of Toys. And I think it was the owner's house that we stayed at. And there was this kind of list of rules on the refrigerator. And it was like, I just remember tripping on it with Tony because it was like these rules. And it was for his kid, I think. Like he had like a kid, like a younger kid. And then the last rule just said, anything upon request or anything upon demand, like something like that. And we were just like, what? Like anything, you know, whatever. It just seems so like ominous. Like you're just out there, like living this free for all, like, you know, you're just on this free for all. And then here's this thing that seems so rigid, but we definitely tripped out on that. And then the crash story was we were in, I think, Rockford, Illinois, or we were somewhere. And we had driven kind of all night, I think, to Rockford, Illinois. Like maybe it was rotation station in Rockford. And we had driven all night and we got there and it was like pretty late night. And it was some kids that like worked at the shop or maybe the park that we were supposed to stay with. And we get to their apartment and there's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 of us. And we roll up to this apartment and it's like dark. There's not like a lot going on. And anyway, these kids that we're supposed to stay with are like in there with some girls and they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do. And so here we are, like we roll up and we're like, okay, we're here to stay. And they're like, okay, cool. Like just just come in, like here, like put your stuff here and just crash. And there was like there was no furniture. It was like another one of those like classic apartments where like there's barely any furniture in it. Okay. And so here we are. I think we all needed to shower. We've been in a van for like forever. And these dudes are just like trying to like you know, like shuttle us wherever in the apartment. And I also feel like they were like maybe younger, whatever. It was just like this weird dynamic where we're like, cool, like we're here to do this demo tomorrow, and like all you're trying to do is like shuttle us to this area to like so you can like carry on with it, whatever you're trying to do. But they just kept going like, just crash, man, just crash. And so we're just fucking in the dark, dude. We're sitting there and we're just giggling so hard, and like it's totally screwing up whatever their whole deal is. And it just got to this boiling point where they were like, it just kind of like erupt. And Solomon was there, and I think he was probably pretty grouchy, and and it definitely it culminated in this moment where it was like pretty tense, right? And so we were just like, oh man, we're like gonna go to the car, we'll be right back. And we literally drove to Chicago that night.
Oh wow!
So we just bailed on that demo. We were just like, whatever, we're out. We just bailed on the demo, and we drove through the night to Chicago. And I remember getting to Chicago, and we were all fried, and it was just it was hot, and we ended up like down by the lake. And I know Solomon was cranky. I think he like maybe stabbed the side of the van with like a. It was just like people were maxed out in their feelings. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there was like, it was one like there was a Guns N' Roses album that just came out, and I or it was either that or like a Rollins Band album. And I know Solomon was like playing it on repeat. And I just remember like there was just this moment where like, I don't know, Tony was, it was just kind of another tense moment, like with like the dynamic of the van. And then we stayed at this kid Junior's house like that night. And there was also like a pretty like we were just in like this kind of like, whatever, probably, I don't want to say sketchy, but it was like a part of Chicago where like some shit could go down. And I think like me and Tony were outside like that night, and it was like when you cut full cabs into half cabs, and I think maybe we were doing something like that. And then we just heard like kind of like pop, 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 pop. And then the kid comes out, he's like, yo, you guys got to get in here. You got to get in here. You got to get in here. And we were just like, fuck. All right. And then, yeah, that was that. So there was like kind of those three things, like that sequence of events that like still like are so clear in my head from that. But yeah, that tour was, it was incredible.
Intense.
I mean, at the time it just seemed like, dude, what is this? But like, I mean, it's just one of those things in hindsight where, I mean, even today, like, you know, I think we spend a lot of time just talking about like the value of tours and just like how maybe like that whole thing is just in like, yeah, it feels pretty like DIY. There are tense moments in it, clearly, like when you're on the road for that long. But like then when you look back on it, you're just like, I mean, how definitively I remember all those things. I mean, that tells you like what those things mean to you, like when it's all said and done. Yeah,
for sure. It's interesting to see that it seems to be coming back a lot now. The like going on tours, like the sci-fi video that just came out. They've been touring and premiering the video all over the place. So yeah, it's interesting that it's. I
mean, it's part of the dream, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like that's what this is like you're trying to like curate. You know, you're trying to spark somebody on a dream and like show them that like the dream can be real. And seeing people in real life, like, you know, kind of living their dream, like definitely helps foster that for like another generation of people who will, you know, maybe do some of the same things I'm talking about, where like take some risks that like feel uncomfortable and put you like out of a comfort zone that you're in. Exactly. But like, if you really want to like live a dream, you kind of got to do some of those things. So it's good for people to see. Yeah, it's good for people to see that like in real life.
This one's from Skin Phillips. He said, I would get Kelly to talk about Pacific Drive and everything that came out of the era in San Diego. I can't remember if I asked him, but I assume he means the Alien House, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was on Pacific Drive. Okay.
Yeah, that was that era.
How long did you stay over there? Was it like for just a short moment, or was it for like a year or something? Do you remember?
So I'd been in San Diego, like I said. I mean, that was the kind of the first place I ended up. So like I was like in and around, like, I mean, it was more like, you know, like Southern Orange County, like at the beginning, but then like everything, like San Diego was kind of the epicenter of like the industry at that point in time. Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. So everything kind of was like going on down there. So in going to San Diego, like for like, you know, like kind of starting there, then going back to Texas, then eventually ending up in SF. Like I always kind of like, you know, it was just easy to go back to. And like all the, like they do the big, like, you know, when Plan B would premiere all their videos, they were always in San Diego. So you'd like end up down there. So I'm trying to remember when I befriended Deerdeck. It had to have been kind of in that moment with like Weiss and Tom. It was probably, because of like maybe Thomas, just the whole workshop thing. Mm-hmm. And like we were like kind of Rob was, maybe he was already down in San Diego, like when we came through that one time. But anyway, like just someone else that like we, you know, hit it off pretty early on. So when I'd go down there, yeah, we just hang out. And I think it was like the early, like also like 8-ball was getting going. So like Ken and Damon were like doing the 8-ball stuff, which would eventually turn into like Drawers in DC. And so like those guys all kind of like had that thing going on. And so, yeah, at some point maybe after a tour or something, like one of those tours, I just went to San Diego and like was hanging with Rob and Drake and Ken and like that whole crew, and it was fun. Oh, yeah, there was like, they lived at this place in Leucadia. They lived with Christy Brosh, actually, Tim Brosh's sister, in Leucadia. And I think I stayed there with them for a while. And it was just another one of those things where like, you know, it was fun. And so I think from that, I was like, oh, like maybe I would move to San Diego at some point. And this was kind of after like I had things going with Real.
Yeah.
So yeah, at some point, like we were just like, all right, let's do it. Let's get this place. And so it was like, yeah, me, Rob, John, and Petrie. And we had that like kind of infamous place off PB Drive.
I remember talking, I did this interview with Josh Kalis recently, and he was talking about that place because he stayed with Jamie Thomas across the street, I believe. And that's kind of how he connected initially with the workshop guys, like going because he was staying with Jamie, but Jamie's approach of skating was so different from what, you know, he wanted to do. And he felt much more comfortable hanging out with you guys and you know, just staying with you guys and, I don't know, just being in the house and playing poker. I don't know what you guys were doing, but
yeah, I guess like to keep it in a nuance, like we had fun, you know what I mean? And I think Jamie had like a very regimented approach and like whatever. He was just very methodical with what he did and
very driven.
It worked very well for him. But like
for sure,
we were more
laid
fun
back.
For, you know, our thing was like fun first and foremost, right? And that like that was probably like detrimental to the skating in like some capacity, but we had fun. We had fun pretty dialed. And so yeah, Josh spent a lot of time over there. A lot of people spent a lot of time over there for that reason. And so yeah, that was like, but the shop, you know, so the shop was like you just basically went around the bay and then the shop was there. So we spent, guys probably spent. If you had to clock how much time I spent at the shop and that boardwalk, it would have been, easily like 6 months, you know, just 6 straight months. If you like mashed it all together, like 6 months of my life, just like on that boardwalk. But yeah, it was fun. You know, that shop was like a magnet there were so many people that were like in and out of that shop at that time that were like, from, you know, a young Smolik and Brandon Turner to like obviously Sal and, you know, Sal that was like his domain. Donger. There was just so many people. So like, it was just fun to like be there. And it was always like, it was dangerous because you could find your way to something that was like not going to be the best thing for your skating pretty much every night. And so, yeah, we did that. We did it and it was fun. But in terms of like that's another thing where I just remember like the relationships that came from like that moment in time were also like, that was before I actually ended up working at like DC or, you know, Drawers and what would later become DC. It was like so much of it was like being sort of fostered like through that shop, you know, between the riders and even like the early gear. Like, you know, it was like, you know, where all that, you know, it was like kind of the first place they thought of with like when they would put stuff out. So it was, that moment in time was super cool. And I've seriously like shot like probably one of my favorite interviews that I ever did at that moment in time was a rad interview. And yeah, we spent like, I don't even know how much time we spent together, but like, yeah, it was like probably one of my favorite interviews that I ever did was with him at that moment in time. But yeah, it was, Skin was, he was amazing. It was like definitely the early like Skin at Transworld days too. Like those guys like him and Swift were like literally the ones in the street filming the videos too. Like this is before they like stood up like a proper like video department and those Transworld videos became what they were. But like, yeah, it'd be like them shooting some photos, then they'd like grab the video camera real quick and like get the clips and then like that they would like mash all that together and that's what would be like some of those early Transworld videos. But yeah, those PB days were fun. Maybe not the best for everybody skating, but again, like, yeah, they were a good time for sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'll tell you a funny story about the PB house that we all went away for a Christmas, and Petrie and Drake had like the downstairs. There was like this kind of big room downstairs with like a bathroom attached to it, and then me and Rob were upstairs.
Okay.
And we all went away for a Christmas. And I don't know, we were probably gone collectively, like call it like a week or 10 days. And we came back, and I don't even know if we went into the downstairs right away, because like maybe Drake and Petrie weren't back right away. But when they came back and like went into the room, it literally looked like a scene out of like Star Trek. You know what I mean? Where like the stalagmites and stalactites are like coming off the ceiling and the walls, because they had left the hot water on. Like the hot water was somehow like coming out of the shower, and it had created this like steam room effect in their room. This like wet steam room effect that went on for like however long that was. And dude, the mold, like to this day, when I think about people live, because you know, I'm like we did our best to like clean it, or they did their best to like clean it up and like, you know, like keep living in it, which also in hindsight's like pretty sketchy. But like to this day, I'm just like, man, the mold is probably still in those walls from like that incident. You know what I
mean? Wow.
So yeah, don't rent that place.
Crazy. Did you guys shoot photos, or is there any footage or photos from that?
You know, that's a good question. I wonder if Drake or Petrie has photos. Dude, if it would have been, and those would have been amazing photos if they had.
Yeah.
Because I just remember being like, this is crazy. I didn't even know this could happen. Like it looked so nuts. It looked so nuts. I've never seen anything like it. It looked nuts.
And so you just cleaned it up, like you just ripped it all.
That's the crazy thing. We didn't even like. They kept living in it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
wow.
the amount of mold
so
they must have like inhaled. Yeah.
Oh god,
yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, but also like such a like I mean, I don't know. That place maybe lasted a year. Maybe I mean we had ended up in another place like not far from there, or they did, like Drake and Deerdick did. So that the vibe kind of kept going for a while. But yeah, that was definitely that was the moment.
All right, let's see. Let's do this one from James Kelch.
Yeah, Kelch.
He said, what was the feeling like when you rolled up to EMB with Aga and met the homies? Who made you feel the most accepted? So we did mention that earlier, but yeah. Do you remember someone that was kind of the most welcoming or something?
Yeah, I mean the vibe was like, again, like I said, maybe I was just naive, or maybe I was just in my own like. You know, you're a kid, like you have this dream, and to me, like even just getting there, I just felt like, wow, this is like the dream is realized type of thing. I haven't done anything. I just rolled up to the place, but I was like, you know, it just felt like so magical to like be at this place that like you knew this was where everything was fucking happening. So like, yeah, I just remember being like stoked, probably intimidated, not really loving the bricks right away. Probably never really fully. I mean, that was also like, you know, wheels were fucking the size of quarters, so that didn't help. But like, also just being like, it felt, I don't know, like where it was, the setting of it, like in the city like that, it just felt, the energy of it was just like, you know, it was palpable energy. Mm-hmm. And you know, you're watching shit be invented like every day. But I don't know, I just remember the vibe being like, it was magical. It's the Port of San Francisco. It just, you felt like, I don't know, you could just feel the weight of it. And to be there with Salman didn't hurt. Like Salman was like, people were, you know, he was like one of the dudes. Yeah. And so like, it hurt to like roll up there with Salman. That definitely gave me probably a little bit of a pass at the outset. I mean, the rest is up to you to not cook it, but like to roll up there with Salman certainly helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, man, I don't remember anybody just being like outwardly lame to me, you know? And so like, I guess also in hindsight, that is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and then we talked about like me and James hit it off like maybe shortly after that. And that like I said, like my own personal thing is that was what really like put me over the top, you know, like showing up with Salman's one thing, but like for James to be like, all right, this dude's okay. Like, I think that meant that made the difference, you know, because if James would have been like, fuck this dude, I don't think it would have ever happened.
For sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, to this day, like, he's one of the people I still like communicate with like the most consistently. So, yeah, man, shout out to James Kelch for giving me the thumbs up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely made a huge difference in my life. Yeah. Also, too, man, I just love to see that like James, like, through all the shit that's happened just over like he's one of the people where I'm like, he's still on the pulse of like what I think, you know, like he's just like, I don't know, I think James like gets it, even though like he never comes across as the most like guy that's like into all the just machinations of like global politics or those type of things. You just like, he just has this barometer where you're like, he just knows what's goofy and what's not goofy. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, and so I love to see that about him, where like he'll just like go in on some shit sometimes where I'm just like, you would never expect it from him, but I'm like, this is why James is awesome, because he just fucking gets it. You know what I mean? He just like gets like what, I don't know. Yeah, just what's good and what's not. Yeah, so right on, man. That's cool.
Oh yeah, this one's from Joe Brook. So he asked a couple of things. He said, ask him about living at 824 High Street in San Francisco. Dave Meddy was his TM at Deluxe. And he also asked him about Morford at that time, if he was fixing spots with Bondo and metal rulers, etc.
Yeah. So Haight Street was like, I don't know if I ever lived there, or if I just like spent a lot of time there, but it was like that little section. I don't know. I guess it was like upper TL at that point. But like, you know, it was Scott lived there. Joe and Meddy lived there with Greg. Pep lived there. It was just like that little strip is where everybody lived. And I mean, dude, I remember driving around. It was like kind of the first time where I was like, wow, this is like what it really means to live in like this type of, you know, it was a track, dude. Like, so like you saw what comes with just that environment, like after dark. And here we are, just these young skaters like walking through it, or just like, you'd be trying to like drive around the block and park the van, and there's just like people trying to solicit sex, like right there. You know what I mean? So like you saw that stuff, and that's the first time where I really saw like, you know, like I grew up in a big city, but like that stuff, it wasn't in your face like that. You know? But San Francisco, like that part of San Francisco, like that was like where it was. And so I would just remember tripping out on that a lot with like those guys. We just be like, here we are, these little skaters, like, wow, this is fucking nuts. Like, so there was that. I mean, that apartment just in jail. One of the main things I remember about that apartment is actually Shani Jangwani came to SF like as part, like, you know, it was like this distributor dude who I went on this guy Eve Enderly, who was basically like trying to like put Shani on and essentially send him to SF with like nothing. But it was like one of those things where it's just like, that's what you did, like go to SF. And he had like a PlayStation, some gaming console. We picked him up at the airport. He didn't speak a fucking word of English. Took him back to Meddy's house. He shows up. He has this gaming system. Meddy has no TV. Just, it was another one of those classic skate setups where there was like fucking 4 things in there and like none of it made sense. But no TV. So Shani plugs the fucking console in and he's playing the game with just headphones, no TV. He's just playing the game off the headphones. And I so definitively have that picture in my head of him sitting in that apartment with those headphones on, playing that game with like no monitor.
Wow.
I also remember there's like a pretty famous picture of Jordan where he's like standing on that windowsill, like looking down, that Gabe shot. That was at that apartment. But yeah, that apartment was fun. I mean, yeah, it was just, you know, another one of those like bunch of people trying to live the dream with like not a lot of money in their pocket, but yeah, just so much fun and shenanigans happening there. But yeah, that place, and like I said, Scott lived right around the corner. Greg was there, Pep. So it was cool. I mean, it was like, yeah, it was like one of the places where we'd always go, like whatever, after skating or meet up to go like before skating. And then you could like bomb all the hills, like down into Union Square. Go to the corner store, get your little Snapple. Thought you were being healthy, getting your little like Snapple to start the day. But yeah, I think like I said, what I remember most is just like, I mean, it was the TL. So like it was just like, wow, okay, this is SF right here. Yeah. And then Gabe at that point in time, I mean, Gabe's always been amazing. Like he's like this like Renaissance dude that like just somehow like knows how to do everything and is like, you know, he's very soft-spoken, but like kind of a gentle giant type dude, but like was just always down to, I mean, he was just always down to make something happen. And obviously an incredible skater. I think the thing the thing I remember most about Gabe is like we'd at Deluxe, the old Deluxe, it was like kind of in this no man's land in Hunters Point, so you kind of do whatever you wanted. It was around, like if you remember where James had that photo on the couch after he got in that fight, it was like kind of around that area. So Gabe was like, let's make dry ice bombs. And I was like, what is a dry ice bomb? And he's like, all right, this is what you do. You get a 2-liter bottle, and you put a little bit of water in it, and then you put like a little bit of dry ice in it, and you like screw the cap on, and then you set it up, and then you stand back and throw rocks at it. And once you hit it with a rock, it just makes, I mean, it's like explosive when it goes off. So we just spent like, I don't know, that was like the thing. It was like, I don't know, what do you want to do? Should we go make some dry ice bombs? Like, all right, cool. Like, let's go make some dry ice bombs. like, spent so much time like at the back of Deluxe, like throwing rocks at 2-liter bottles to blow them up. But yeah, I mean, being on the road with him too was always like, yeah, I mean, Gabe's incredible. I mean, so obviously, like probably most of the photos I have are like, I mean, literally, it's you named the 3 people that shot most of them. Lance Dawes too, like a bit, but like, it was Gabe, Skin, and Swift. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely owe a lot to Gabe for that.
He mentioned him fixing spots and everything. Like, was that already kind of a norm at the time, or was he kind of a pioneer with that? Yeah,
he was ahead of the curve with that. I don't even think like, I think there was probably a stigma on it at that point. People were like, why are we trying this hard? It had like that kind of thing where it's like, what? That's weird. We're going to try to make this skatable. Like, that's not cool. Like that's like not the thing, that ain't it. And so, yeah, just again, like way ahead of the curve with that POV. But yeah, Gabe's thing was just like, by any means necessary. He was the guy that was like, skaters could be real passive and lazy and just cool and like whatever. This shit ain't cool. Trying ain't cool. Like that's not what's gonna happen. And he just was like, you have no reason to not try. Like, I'm gonna make it so like you can give me every excuse you want to give me, but like I'm gonna put it in front of you, and it's easy. Like, it's the easiest way for you to do this, and if you walk away from that, like, then it's just on you.
Yeah.
So that was always his ethos. Was just like, you're not gonna give me a reason why you can't do this.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting. Yeah, because that reminds me of Ty Evans. Like,
of course,
that kind of work ethic. Like, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ty picked it up from Gabe or. I mean, they must have influenced each other quite a bit. But
I don't know if he's ever said so directly, but it would blow my mind if like there wasn't some of that thinking that was like picked up from Gabe.
Let's do this. I have an audio one here. So this one is it's in 3 parts actually. All right. Let's do part 1.
Kelly Bird, what is up, dog? I got a couple questions for you. I'm curious about the process. You were one of the first from our generation to move from pro skating to working behind a desk, I guess you would say. And you seemed pretty natural at it. You were super organized. Was that transition a tough decision? Did you get hurt or something? Did someone talk you into it? Or did it just seem like the natural step, since we didn't really have any examples back then that there could be any longevity in being a pro skater? And once you got into that, did anyone help you get your system going, like getting organized, or did you just freestyle it? I ask because a lot of the skaters I knew back in the day struggled with the ego side of crossing over from being a pro skater to having a quote-unquote real job.
That's amazing. Hell yeah, that's good.
So, did you recognize?
Of course. Yeah, right on, Carroll. Stoked.
Awesome.
Yeah, one of the highlights of my life was him on his last Bond episode where he's said that.
Yeah, he was stoked on your skating.
Yeah. It's like definitely like, all right, like okay, I'm good. I can die happy now.
For sure.
But yeah, okay, so. We touched on it a little bit. I think at the point in time where like I felt old, I felt like like sure, maybe you squeeze a bit more out of it, but also like this seems like the time where like most people are already like well on their their career, the start of their career journey. I had gone to university for a couple years and left, and my whole thing was like the summer I left university to like take this leap. I was like, I'll do this. I'll give it a couple years, and whatever happens, like I can come back to this.
Yeah.
So I had some structure from that. You know what I mean? Like I was not bad. I was not bad in school. I didn't hate school. It honestly was like kind of like it was, for lack of a better way to say it, was just like you just did it to get it done, to like go on to the thing that you wanted to do, which was skate. Yeah. So like I could do school.
Do you remember what you studied at the university?
Yeah. It's funny because like when you get in your first year of university, you just kind of redoing high school. So I did that. And then in my mind, I just like arbitrarily picked something. I was like, oh, what do I want to do? What's a profession that's like has longevity? I was like, oh, I'll be a dentist. I was like,
okay.
So I had like maybe the second year started like doing some courses that like would have put me on that path. But also those courses, I was like, this is like, nah, I'm going to get in over my head. Like, this is where like, I'm just going to have to stop everything and like go all in on this. I could have done it, but it was like, I just, timing, it just, I wasn't there. It's like sure. Mentally.
Yeah.
So by the time I like had done the skate thing and like kind of gotten to the end, again, it was all kind of serendipitous. I was actually writing for Slap a little bit. It was like I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time at Slap like toward the end of my like SF run. So like Hassan, Tim, Lance, Wei, Chang. Like there was like that little like office in the bottom of High Speed. So I spent a lot of time in there. So Lance kind of had me like he would just be like, "You want to do this? You want to do this?" So I would like try to write some stuff. I don't think I was ever like an amazing writer, but like I would like just do the make the ask happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like the ability to like take an assignment and get it done, I guess, like I had that in me.
Yeah.
But I think what really like opened the door for me was like Ken and Damon. Like we had, we obviously had a relationship through Drawers in DC. When they started DC, I was actually in SF and they were kind of using like, I was almost like maybe an early like, I don't know, kind of TM, I guess, like in SF where like Ken would be like, okay, we want to get to Scott, we want to get to Huff. Like, and so he like, I was kind of like, I don't know, I guess helping facilitate that a little bit. And so the door closed on the Real thing. And so, I was doing a little bit of the Slap thing. And I honestly thought like, I don't know, maybe I'll just work for High Speed. But then Ken was pretty friendly with my partner at the time. And he kind of put it out there. It was like, hey, do you think Bird would want to do this? Do you think he would want to come down here and do this? And she kind of said something to me about it. And I was like, shit, why? Like, yeah, why not? I mean, DC was like just getting going. So I went down there and like those guys were like super like Damon, like they were super helpful and just like giving me like just the download on like, okay, this is what like you got to do. And it was like a time where like you kind of did it, like you did the TM stuff. Like for sure that was like my early, like, my core mandate was like get product to people, like make sure people had like product and like, help like foster the team a bit. But then it was like, hey, we're doing DC apparel. Like, do you want to help with the apparel? And then they would give you like an opportunity to like do some colorways or like, when they kind of started that outdoor thing, they were like, can you contribute to like the thought process of like the footwear? I mean, and like, I'm not like design, like product design is not my thing. I did like do some of the DC apparel and some Drawers apparel, but like just like some stuff here and there. And it was just like based on, but I was never like the guy that was going to design a line top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So that experience and just understanding like how everything kind of worked together was really like the early, like, I mean, that gave me like the snapshot. And, I think at the time I didn't like totally appreciate it. And there was like I will say there was a little bit of like what Mike was saying, like this ego thing of like, it's just hard to let go, you know what I mean? Or hard to picture yourself like, great, now I'm the guy that has to like send the box out, like like in your mind, you were on this level. And not to say I was ever on the level of any of those people, but like you were living that life. And now you got to clock in every day. You got to be there at 8. You got to be there at 9. You got to send the box. You got to put the tour together. You got to be the guy on the tour to like make sure everybody is where they're supposed to be. And like, I guess at that point, like there was some things about that didn't feel that cool. You know what I mean? And so like maybe that I had a little bit of a chip on, early on it was like I didn't approach it in a way that like I probably didn't fully appreciate the opportunity, put it that way.
Yeah.
So I did that, but like, man, I was only there 3.5 years, but I learned like so much. I mean, Ken was like, obviously like, but both those guys are like, what they did is pretty, it's obvious and pretty unprecedented for
sure.
What it looks like to be like a big brand pushing progression and just like product progression in skateboarding.
Yeah.
So like very fortunate to be a part of that. But like, I would just say like, I was willing, as much as like, I was like, maybe like, I'm sending out another box. Like I was also very willing to learn new stuff. So like Damon was like, okay, when we talked about doing product design, he sent me to a class. Like it was like, I don't know, Palomar like college or something. It was like, it was like a crash course on how to use Illustrator and like design tools, like they were willing to do stuff like that for me, but I was also willing to do it. I was also willing to like take the time to do it. And I think like, that's the thing that like maybe they saw in me is that he will take the time to like at least apply himself and try. Like he won't like out, you know, maybe he'll be grumpy about certain parts of it, but like he will at least show up and try. Yeah. And I think for me, that's always been my thing, is just like show up and like apply yourself and try. Right. And so I think like that's all I've ever done, is just like, just be open to like learn stuff, and eventually like it will all start to like kind of come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a willingness, you know, I had a willingness to like put myself out there and do it and try. And obviously it was a moment in time where you could start a brand and it would just grow exponentially. You know what I mean? Like there was and to be at a brand in those moments in time, you also learn so much, because it's like, it's the onset of like the digital age, right? So like you're learning, you know, it's like people are building website, like all the like early building of websites and that stuff. So that also was very beneficial, to be like doing that at a moment in time where like there were just all these brands that were essentially incubators of like how to run a business, you know what I mean? And so that was awesome when everything was just going like this, like every quarter, it was just, everything was going to the moon, and you were a part of that process to learn it all. Like, man, again, like I've attribute so much of like being able to get to where I am to being there in those moments in time, because those incubators, like, I mean, it was 10 times better than any university program or school ever could have been. Sure. Way more beneficial. And that's the thing that, like, I don't know, I think like it's a different era, and like there are different incubators for what we do, but it's certainly not brands like that anymore. You know what I mean? Like to be at DC at that moment in time, like, dude, the shit you could learn, it was nuts.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think like that, I mean, I guess to answer the question, it was like, I kind of always had like that, you know, I think school did teach me at least like organization and like task follow through. So I had that. And then I just had a willingness to like show up and like kind of learn on the fly. But yeah, I mean, I would say I learned a lot from Ken and Damon. I learned a lot from being at Podium, you know, when Lakai started and those guys brought me onto Lakai. I mean, it was kind of that DC experience all over again. You're starting something from the ground up. You have the backing of like a little bit of a bigger like distribution through Podium. So like the infrastructure's there. But I mean, I said on the other, I mean, that was the closest I'll ever get to like knowing what it's like to own your own brand, because like those guys essentially like let me operate in a way that felt like I was like part of, you know, it really felt like I was invested in the brand in that way as an owner. And yeah, I mean, I'll always be, you know, like just that in of itself, like that was like a godsend to be able to like have that experience and for them to allow me to lean into it in that capacity. So I learned a lot from that. I mean, obviously learned a ton from Rick and Meg, just watching like their MO, especially like, you know, like Rick's no stress approach, no stress approach for better, for worse. Like the dude, like, no, yeah. But yeah, I hope I captured the essence of like the question in that, but yeah, shout out to those guys for letting me, like I said, lean into it in that capacity and learn. Like, I mean, again, would not be where I'm at without that opportunity. That was like a huge evolution of like my just ability to understand like what it really takes to run a brand.
I was just wondering, like, before you jumped on that opportunity at DC, and right as you were kind of, you know, stepping out of your skateboarding career, were you considering other options? Were you thinking of maybe other paths you could have taken, or were you, or did it kind of happen quick enough that you didn't really, you know, overthink it, or how did it all happen, kind of?
Yeah. I think like I didn't have enough time to overthink it. And again, like serendipity, like godsend, whatever you want to say, like it was like the door closed at Deluxe, and those guys were, you know, they were like not, you know, there was a willingness, I think, through High Speed and Deluxe to like maybe help me figure out a path. And like there was like not a lot of in-depth conversation about what that path would look like. They knew I was doing stuff for Slap, and I think like maybe, like I said, there was a thought that could evolve into something. But I mean, I would say not even like a month, and Ken was like, do you want to do this? So I was tripping, obviously. I was like, what am I going to do? Yeah. What am I really going to do? Am I going to have to go? I mean, my biggest fear was I was going to have to go back to Texas and just kind of be like, okay, I guess I'm just going to reintegrate here and like do the university thing. And like, I'll just kind of go down that path and see where it takes me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the DC drawers thing happened, and then that was that was damn near 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I've aside from a 3.5 month stretch between DC
and Lakai,
I have clocked in for skateboarding for almost 30 years.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah. Congrats.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty insane. I mean, I guess that's a career in some capacity.
Let's do the second part from Mike.
All right, Kelly, here goes my second question. So, you had back surgery about somewhere in 10, 15 years ago for a herniated disc. And I'm curious, I mean, you didn't really skate that much back when you were in LA. But now, since I'm seeing Instagram more often, it looks like you're ripping all the time. How long did it take you after your surgery to get comfortable skating the way you are now? And are your kids at an age where it's a little bit easier for you to skate more often? Are you skating more these days, or has it been steady and I'm just noticing because I'm looking at Instagram for the first time in 5 years? So, short question long, when did you start skating as much as you are now? And especially with the back surgery, 2 kids, and full-time job, how did you get to this place of skating again? Because looks like you're having a lot of fun and doing it a lot, and I'm stoked to watch it.
Awesome. That's incredible. Yeah, man, I did not have that on my, what I would be doing at this point in my life, short list for sure. But so the back surgery, yes, I had back surgery about 10 years ago. Disc herniation, pretty standard microdiscectomy, cause basically they're just trying to get the disc off the nerve. So I did that and rehabbed it and felt pretty good, but never was really thinking about skating. And honestly, again, in hindsight, the fact that I lived in LA, most of the time I worked at Lakai, I'd go through little moments where I'd hop on and do something, but not really do it consistently. And a lot of that's you're in your own head. You're around the greatest people in skateboarding. There's some insecurity in that. I'm on a tour with literally the best dude, and then I'm going to just try to dust it off and feel so there's a lot of self-conscious shit in that, which really in hindsight, it's silly. It shouldn't have mattered, but whatever. Mm-hmm. We are where we are now. So, I've always felt pretty comfortable after the back surgery, but never thought a lot about really trying to skate again. But then I think as with a lot of people, COVID happens. I have a young kid. I'm outside. There's, you start skating casually. You have more time. You're tinkering around. You kind of going through the progression of things you know how to do, and it's fun. My kid was a big motivating factor because my thing was I want my kid to at least see who I am for themselves a little bit, instead of having to be here's this video of me. I used to do this. It's fuck it. I can do it now. So I just want to show them what it looks like, even just to subconsciously see the process of it. I think we all understand what that process, what it can mean for you, bigger picture. Yeah. And so I just wanted to see him. I wanted him to see me go through the process of doing shit and not giving up and doing it. Yeah. So there was that. Then there was a reissue that Real did that I was a part of with Nicole House, and I filmed some stuff for that. So then I just got to this point where it was I kept going, and I had kind of run through here's all the stuff that you can kind of do. But then I was well, I'm in this rhythm. And then I just kind of started trying more stuff that I hadn't done, and started taking slams. And kind of to his point, I had taken enough slams and not been incapacitated by the slams where I was okay, I can do this, and it's not fucking me up. Sure, I'll be sore for a day or two, but it's not re-aggravating anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then so once I did that, and then kind of did some stuff where I was almost surprised myself in a way where I was oh shit, I did that,
Yeah.
Then it was just then the switch flipped again, and it was well, once it flips, you can't stop. I mean, at that moment in time, I think there was a story where I think Rick was maybe asking Julian how what do you do? What's the secret? How do you keep going? I think Julian just told him well, you just don't stop. Mm-hmm. And so once the switch flipped again, I was well, I can't stop, because if I stop, then I wasted all this fucking time getting back up to this point. So now my process is almost I will say there are moments I actually try a lot of stuff that I've never done before, even though it looks maybe inconsequential and that for some people it doesn't look like anything. A lot of the stuff I've never really done before, in some ways. So I do spend a lot of time where it probably looks crazy. Like, why is this dude going through this at this point? Like, clearly he's like not young, but like, and like, why is he out here torturing himself? But I don't know. That's the environment that I remember. Like as a skater, it was like the progression era, and it was like it was just always about like outdoing yourself or doing something that never been done. And that's still the mindset I have, for better for worse. Like some days I'm just like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like you're out here for 2 hours trying this thing. You look like a psychopath. You clearly don't look like you're having fun. But at the end, like when it does come together, it's still rewarding in that same way. So like, and I mean, dude, I've taken probably some of the most brutal slams I've taken over the last like 2 years, more than like when I actually skated. Yeah. And somehow like my body's holding up. So I'm just like, you know, again, like, I guess just like, you know, like ride it until the wheels literally fall off. So that's kind of like the mindset I'm in right now, where I feel like at least once a week I have to get out there and like torture myself in some capacity. And I mean, whatever, it's not always torture. Like I am having fun, but like, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at right now. That's the process. And then obviously like you see a lot of, you know, there's a lot of people in my age range that are kind of like having the same sort of renaissance for themselves, or that just never stopped and are still fucking killing it. Yeah. And so like, I guess we're our own little, like, whatever, we're our own little group, you know, like I just see the people that, you know, the Clydes, whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's so many people out there. Like obviously Mike is getting sparked again. Mm-hmm. You see a little stuff for Rick pop up, like, so whatever. It's just, it's fun, I guess, in that regard. And it's, I mean, really it's for myself and it's for my kids. Yeah. And you know, if people get a kick out of it and get sparked on it, like it's, you know, that's fucking cool too. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, to me, just at this point, I'm just like, well, if I stop, I've blown it. Yeah. Like, I have to keep I have to keep going. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I think I remember talking to Brian De La Torre a little while back, and he was telling me about, like, now he has a young girl. I'm not sure how young his kid is, but like maybe 3 or 4 or something. And he's back in Florida, and he's like not skating as much as he used to, I guess. But and he's still, you know, he tries to push himself, and he talked about keeping the blades sharp or the knife sharp or something like that. And that applies to what you were saying. Like if you stop skating, then you kind of fall off that wagon, you know. So you need to at least go every once in a while, and you know, kind of keep training, I guess. And so you said you go skate like what, once a week? Do you try to do like, what's kind of your skating routine these last few years?
Yeah, at least once a week I'll try to go on, like, I don't know, like there's a little bit of stuff to skate at work. So like maybe I'll skate there like one day, like for an hour or two. And you know, this place is like, there's so many new parks here. There's so much to skate here. Yeah. So like find something that I'm into and probably like go there for a little bit, like do whatever I can there, and then just kind of like move on to like different spots. But like also too, like at this point, the fact that I have like, you know, maybe a 2 to 3 hour window, like once or twice a week, it focuses you so much more than like where you were, like, you know, like when you took it for granted that like, I can just do this whenever, like, and I think that helps a lot, like that, just having that, like, it's like, you got 2 hours, man. Like, this is it. Yeah. And you got this and like maybe one other time this week. So like, it's crazy how much like that will focus your mind and like push you to like, you know, like I said, if you're trying something you've never really done, like, yeah. And so, you know, on the one hand, it kind of makes you wonder, like, if you'd had that approach, like when you were like more physically like able, like how much more, but also like, you can't really think about it like that, because I don't know, I think it's probably cooler for me. Like, I'm pretty stoked to be like at this point in my life. And instead of being like, look at what I did, like at this point, I can just be like, hey, I'm still doing this. Like, and I think, you know, whatever, there's just as much like value in that.
Absolutely.
If not more, to just be able to be like, I mean, I see all the people that are, you know, my kids go to school, and I see like, and no shade on like whatever, but I'm just like, in my mind, like what I'm doing right now at my age compared to like what some other people are doing, it's pretty, you know, it's, I guess, that like quintessential like skate fountain of youth thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you don't get old because you quit skating type thing. However it goes, you don't quit skating because you get old because you quit skating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. Mike asked about your kids and their ages and how that kind of could maybe prevent you from skating a few years when they were younger, maybe where you need to be at home more, taking care of them, that kind of thing. Do you think that at the age they're at now, maybe it offers you more freedom to maybe bring them on a session and, you know, have them around and they can play or do whatever and you can skate and still keep an eye on them? But
yeah, there's something to that. I mean, it's fun to like have him there, like goofing around, or just like, I mean, my kid will try to skate a little bit, but like he's usually on a bike or something, and same with my daughter, like on a scooter. So I mean, it's fun to have him there, like just, and yeah, I think it helps. Like, I mean, it takes the edge off for sure. You know, you're not trying to like blow it, whatever. You're just like there with your kids, like trying to roll around. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think like there's something in just like making it a lighter like endeavor, like by having your kids there. You know, you're not trying to, I'm certainly not like, well, I won't say never, like I have gone down some like rabbit holes with my kids there, but like it definitely helps to not like get
too wrapped up in it.
Yeah, go too psycho on like trying to do a trick with your kids there, because then you're just like, well, I just look to them, I just look like a nut right now, you know.
Yeah. And how did they react to you like skating intensely and trying a trick for so long? Do they appreciate that? Are they like just skeptical? Like, what the hell are you doing? Or like, what? I mean, they're probably used to it by now. But
yeah, the couple times where like my son specifically has been there, where like there's a school like 2 blocks from me that like had some kind of like janky shit. It like comes and goes, but like there was this little bench there, this like little funny bench there that like I had like a little moment on. And there have been a couple times, because there's a playground right next to it. So it would start with like, dude, let's go to the playground. Like you can kind of do this, and I'll kind of skate around here for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been a couple of times where it's like the minute turns into an hour, and he's just kind of like sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
Like I can tell he's just tripping, like, why? Like, what is happening? But then when I do it, I mean, I've even posted a couple of clips where he's just like, yeah. And that's definitely cool. But also he's just like, finally we can go.
We can get out of here.
You did it. Like, finally we can get out of here. It's probably that more than like me actually doing the trick. But those moments are like, I mean, in hindsight, like those like will definitely like be, what like really stand the test of time for me is like him.
For sure.
Yeah. Just him reacting to those moments will be cool to look at in like 10, 15 years.
All right, I have a quick third part from Mike, but I don't think it's a question. It's kind of more a shout out or something.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right, man. I hope these questions weren't too annoying. I'm just always curious about people's process and just the mind. And also, I just want to say, personally, thank you so much for everything you did for a lot of people, but especially for me with DC, Lakai. You're a fucking key component to all of that. You kill it, dude. So, and also, fucking keep skating, dude. It's been rad to watch. It's inspiring. Later.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's like I said, I can die happy now. That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's cool, like, because when you're in it, like you don't, it's hard to, there's so much emotion in this whole thing, and stuff happens for better, for worse. And a lot of times, like, you don't get to like fully appreciate like the circularity of the friendships and just like what you've been able to experience through brands and just these experiences. And like I said, like, I mean, dude, for them to give me the opportunity they did with a brand that they took all the risk with, there was no risk for me. It was all the risk was with them.
Yeah.
But they allowed me to like lean into it in a way that like I really did feel like I was part of it on their level. Mm-hmm. I mean, that will always be invaluable to me. But yeah, I mean, just like thank them, thank all of them just as much, because it's all, they did way more for me than I probably did for them. I mean, obviously it's rad to hear that, like, I will just say, like, big picture, my thing, like, I've thought about this a lot recently, like, what's the why? And I think the why is like, you're just like, we all have this dream to do this thing. And if you've experienced it in some capacity, you want to help people realize their version of it in a way that they're going to look back on and be proud of in some capacity, in some way. And that's like, there's a product component of it and a brand component of it. But at the end of the day, like, that's what you're really trying to do, is have somebody live some part of this thing in a way that they're going to be proud of one day.
Yeah.
And that's what my whole thing is, And so to hear, someone like that, I mean, yeah, it means everything. Like, that's because you don't always get that, and it's fine. Like, I get it. It's hard. Sometimes it's just like, whatever. It's just hard to like quantify those type of things at like certain moments in time. But like, yeah, I mean, clearly it's good to hear that kind of stuff from someone like that.
All right. This one is from Dimitry Elyashkevich.
Yeah.
So he asked a couple of things. He said, ask Bird about the Super Tours from inception, execution, and reception.
Yeah. I mean, those were like iconic. I mean, going back to the tour thing and just like how integral tours are to like the dream of skating and like kind of propagating the dream of skating to like a younger generation. And those tours were the most iconic, and I think propagating like what it looked like to like really maximize the dream. I mean, I will say like one thing Ken did is he showed maybe some of the bigger brands that are like in this thing now what it looks like to kind of take the marketing playbook they have and apply it to skateboarding, right? Yeah. So to do something in a very grand way that's based on like an athlete insight, the mega ramp is one of those things for sure. Mm-hmm. Taking an athlete insight of something that's never been done and saying, well, it could be done if we do this. And yeah, just like asking the question, what if, and then like doing it, and I think the Super Tour was another one of those things where it was like, well, what if we just approach this in the way that like maybe, and I think at the time people maybe were like, I'm not sure about it. Like, oh no, this feels kind of kooky. Like we're all in a jersey and like, they're literally like I'll never forget the first demo of the first tour, the first one we did. It was like, again, just this magical thing where like they're calling the names out of the riders mm-hmm. and they're dropping into the course and they're just all doing like this crazy trick on the course. And every single person made their trick on like that first, wow. Like, and it was like so magical. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like everything just like crystallized right there. It was this is the vision. This is the vision of this thing.
It's set
and I guarantee there are people that were on at those demos at that moment that still like, talk about it to this day as like this like definitive moment in their lives. And so like to be there and be a part of it, like that's one of the ones where like you knew in real time that it was special.
Yeah.
To have that group of people and the camaraderie was incredible, and every one of the demos was amazing. And I think the thing that was like super awesome is they had this kind of like duality of like you had this big moment, but then at night you had this sort of like almost like rock star celebration type thing. So it was like have this big iconic demo, have this kind of rock star moment, and then you were on a plane like the next morning going to the next spot. So the like how fast it was going and how those two things were like meshing together. I don't know. I mean, it felt like just a straight up like an arena rock tour or something.
Yeah,
like it had that vibe to it where you're just like, these are the superstars of this era. They're putting on these live events that are going above and beyond the expectation. And then we're having all this fun at night, and then we're just like going on to the next place and doing it again. And then it's in like these iconic cities in Europe to top it off. And then you had like all the like video and magazine coverage that like came with it after the fact. And again, like for the dream and like really like showcasing a dream in a way that was like the best of the best showcase of a dream. Like to me, like, I mean, that still stands the test of time of like something as a pro skater, you'd really want to aspire to like have that experience.
Mm-hmm. Must have been special, yeah. How many of these Super Tours did you do?
There was two, and
just two.
There were only two. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they've tried to run it back in some capacity, but like the ones were like back to back. It was like 97, 98.
Okay. Did you ever talk with Mike and Rick about bringing that to Lakai, or did it feel like, no, this was a DC thing, it makes no sense to bring it to Lakai?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. It made sense for DC and like kind of the brand aesthetic they had, and we did it there and it made sense there. But like Lakai, there was a different aesthetic and approach at Lakai, and like, yeah. I mean, there was some great, like the first trip we did at Lakai was that Australia trip where there was that little short video that Ty edited that came out of that. It had, it had similarities like big demos and like a cool like media output from it. Obviously, Beware the Flare. Those type of trips. But I think like when it got to that, like it was more about like what was the output going to be from a video standpoint. And you saw that like evolve into like stuff that they did for 4-star with things like Super Champion Fun Zone. But like, yeah, I think like it became more of like, how can we make like a cool video project out of this trip? And again, like kind of, it's just a different way to kind of showcase the dream and like what it can look like. But all those demos were, I think, just as big,
Yeah, for sure.
So no, I don't think there was ever really a conversation about like trying to run that aesthetic back though.
Dimitri also asked about living on campus in LA.
God, again, just talk about like there was so much of like just what was really driving, like, I don't know, just what was being created to showcase to the world of skateboarding at that moment in time that was like so concentrated in this little area between like, you know, Wilshire and 3rd and like La Brea and La Cienega, like that little pocket right there. I mean, gosh, so many of us lived there, from like Mike and Chico's place with Tony to Scott and Dimitri's place, which like for a straight year before I moved to LA, I worked at DC. And I think maybe Lakai was just getting started or about to start. And I was driving. I would leave San Diego on a Friday. I'd drive up. I'd either stay with Scott and Dimitri or Mike and Chico. We'd just, you know, go out Friday and Saturday night, like in the streets, Saturday and Sunday. And then I'd drive home Sunday. And then I'd work and drive back. And I like, honestly, like, I think it was pretty obvious because I didn't go right away to Lakai. Mm-hmm. I didn't go right. I wasn't like I was still at DC, and, you know, obviously like I felt like I had some, you know, obligation and loyalty to Ken to like make it work. And yeah, I think like me being gone all the time, and there was obviously starting, like I was pretty, you know, I was bummed that those guys left, and I felt like maybe, who knows if there was even a path to like keep him there. But like I kind of wore my heart on my sleeve, you know what I mean? And I think like they kind of read into that and were like, you know, man, like this just isn't the place for you. So like that's how I ended up getting like pieced out of there. Okay. And so at that point, then I was just like, okay, I'm all in on like trying to like make this work. So I was spending so much time in LA with those guys, and that campus was like where it was all happening. Mm-hmm. And then obviously linked up with Tim and ended up living with Tim for a bit, who was like a little bit outside of campus. He was more, he was like in this funny little pocket off like Hollywood. But yeah, that campus era was like, I mean, dude, it was like breakfast every morning. You know, you go to like Highland Grounds or Lulu's or just one of those places. It was like, yeah, the amount of money we spent on breakfast alone was like, could have probably bought my first house off of like breakfast bills alone. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it. Like it was, yeah, that era was so fun. Meza. I ended up living in Park La Brea. Deerdick and Ave ended up living in the same tower for a little bit. Dill was around. Greg Carroll was there for a bit. I mean, yeah, like all the Big Brother heads, you know, Tremaine and Cliver were there. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it was like a pretty, like kind of another like incubator for just like all this stuff to like come together and happen, because we were just all there together all the time, you know? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, Ty was obviously in the mix. Yeah, it was a moment. Yeah. Another era with a lot of late nights. Put it that way. We handled that part of it.
Let's see, I have a few questions from Aaron Hoover.
Sick.
Who was director of product design at Lakai. Mm-hmm. He said, Bird, you've always had solid takes on skateboarding. So his first question is, what is the biggest difference between skateboarding in the 90s and now?
Oh, God, that's a tough question, man. That is, yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'm the guy to totally unpack that one. You know what? I would say to me the biggest difference, and again, like I said, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, is like, I think the way that the dream plays out for people may be different than what it was when we, like, maybe it just looks different. Maybe, I mean, you know, I think there's still a dream there, but the way the dream that's the word I was looking for, the way the dream manifests itself, it might just feel different. Maybe it's just a different, maybe the manifestation of the dream is a little bit different now than like what it was for us. And that's like maybe not, you know, like there's no saying what's right or wrong, but like to me, I would say that's maybe what feels different is like what we thought was the manifestation of the dream, and like maybe what the current manifestation is of the dream. Maybe there's some differences in that, and that's by virtue of just like the world has evolved, and there's no right or wrong, but like it's just a different world now than it was then, and yeah, the tools for manifestation look different now than they did then. And so like by virtue of that, things just don't come together the same way, or they don't materialize the same way that they did for us. And so I think you can, if you've lived one version of a dream and you're looking at another version of the dream, maybe people can lament that in some capacity. I don't do that. I think like, you know, it's evolve or die. That's the world. It's evolve or die. And so if you can accept the fact that like things are going to move forward, and like how do you move forward with them and understand like what the new manifestation of the dream is, then like, yeah, you are going to just be like looking in the rearview mirror, lamenting it. And you know, I'm not going to be the guy to unpack that, but I will say that's probably the biggest difference to me is the manifestation of the dream just looks different. And I think that's a lot of what people that's a lot of where the conversation is right now. It just maybe what people aspire to and what they think, realizing their skate dream is it just looks different.
Yeah.
And who's to say what, if they're stoked on it, and if they feel the same way we felt when, like for me, when I walked up to Embarcadero the first time, and if whatever the benchmark is today, if that feels the same way for people, great, then that is what that is, And so I think I would say that's probably one of the biggest adjustments and, maybe transitions people are going through right now, is because you have a lot of people that understand the dream as it was at a certain point, and maybe, like I said, it looks different and manifests itself differently now. And maybe the way it manifests itself isn't always like directly corollary with like a traditional business model, And I think that's where like shit's maybe crossed up for people now, is there was like a business model and an infrastructure. And yeah, maybe the current manifestation of the dream there's no circularity in it. And I think that's like another thing I think about is like circularity is just like perpetuate or like propagate the dream that you want to dream, but like like hopefully there's some circularity in it for like the next group of people that want to live that dream.
He also asked, what is your most memorable or impactful Lakai story? Maybe from the early days when things were just kicking off, fully flared, Costner guy joining, design meetings with Spike, or late nights proofreading those wild themed catalogs with Mueller.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, shout out to Mueller. Like, me and that guy spent so many like long hours together on those projects, and like for him to be willing to like execute those ideas with the level of detail that we did for what they were, there's nobody else that like I think would have taken that time. And like that's another, like I'm so grateful to him to be willing to like because dude, those catalogs, I mean, there was like this run of like probably 3 years where like we were approaching catalogs like, I don't know, like we were making like a video, you know what I mean? Like fully flared or something. Like we were so in like the level of detail in those things, like we'd come up with a theme and then we just lean into it started with like basically doing these magalogs where we were creating like Lakai versions of like, all the like staple departments of like skate mags, right? So like we just take like, if it was like the trash section of Thrasher or like the cartoons that Transworld would do to like all the different departments of like the skateboarder mag or the skate mag. And we just do like our versions of that. I mean, that in of itself like took forever because we were basically like creating our own magazine and people loved it. Like they were down to let us do it. But like, and then it evolved into these concepts of just like, oh, we're going to do a skateboarding for dummies, if you know that series that and so we'd like, everything would be like so detailed, like to parallel, like how dummies did their stuff. So man, there were like, we spent so much time. And if you think about it, like that's really like what a seasonal brand concept, it was like, we were kind of creating a seasonal brand concept, like by virtue of these catalogs. And I don't think people were like really thinking in those terms when we were doing it. But like now that I'm in a place where I'm at, I was like, yeah, that's like a seasonal brand. Like we were kind of coming up with our own like seasonal brand concept and like really leaning into that for everything we did, from like the catalog to like, then it started to bleed into the product. Then it started to bleed into like what showed up at retail and like the video stuff. So it all kind of like mashed together. Mm-hmm. So I would say like that part of it for me is like very definitive for like an era of Lakai that I think like really like helped define the personality of it, but then also like, I don't know, just kind of like prepare you for something bigger. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then obviously like all the trips, like dude, I mean, that's every skater is just going to go to like, that's the thing that they hold, the trips are what you always remember. And so like, yeah, I mean, from that first Australia trip to Beware of the Flare to like, I mean, so many of the filming trips. Not that I went on all the filming trips for Fully Flared, but like, there was definitely some like iconic trips, like a Russia trip comes to mind specifically for better or for worse. Yeah. And then up to the premiere itself, like there was a lot there for sure. So
this is just for me, but I know you talked about this on the 9 Club about the Fully Flared like countdown thing on the website. Mm-hmm. I was just wondering, how did you come up with that idea? And I think you said that some of the writers didn't react well to it. They were like, oh, fuck, that's a lot of pressure all of a sudden.
Yeah. I don't really know why. Like, there wasn't like something that was like, I don't know, I guess definitive enough for me to like point. But I just know we had said for years, okay, this is when it's going to come out. This is when it's going to come out. And every year, like, I was the one on the back end, like working with all the people to whatever, just keep the water flowing through the pipes, I guess, to like keep the thing going. And it wasn't always easy to be like, we need another year, or it's going to go on another season, or it's going to go on another how long. So like you gear up. I mean, I think you saw like, as far as like maybe 2 years out, we were starting to like say, okay, it's coming. Mm-hmm. And then for many reasons, it, like Guy comes on, that extends it. Then Air comes on, that extends it. And so it was also at a time where like people didn't quite, and this is like, I'm sure you could still have this argument to this day, but it was like the whole like ROI thing where it's like, well, we're putting all this money into this video is like, and I think people were judging ROI at that point where it was like, how many videos are we going to sell? Mm-hmm. Because I think like maybe Skate-More had come out right around that time, and there was a significant investment in Skate-More, and maybe from just like a video sales standpoint, like it didn't balance out.
Okay.
And so I think like maybe people were looking at that like, well, we're just going to keep investing in this, and like the ROI is going to be upside down. Not really thinking about it from like a more holistic brand standpoint that you're going to sell more shoes, you're going to sell more t-shirts, you're going to sell more hats,
Uh-huh.
It was just like a 1-to-1, like how many videos are we going to sell? So there was like some, I guess, friction and like the idea of continuing to invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
So when it finally felt real that we were going to put it out, and like to me, when I say it felt real, it was like when Rick was like, okay, this is what we're doing. Because up to that point, like, it was like you'd come up, I'd be like, we got to do it. And it would be kind of like, oh, I don't know. But then when Rick was finally like, okay, this is happening. And then when that intro, like, the intro got filmed pretty close to the actual launch date. But like when everything started like coming together to produce that's when you knew like it was real. And at that point I was just like, okay, we've waited so long, we've talked about it so long, fuck it, I'm just gonna put this thing up as this countdown. And I wasn't even really like, I don't even know, it just was like, felt like a fun little thing to do. And I was not doing it to like it wasn't meant to like put pressure on the riders to like, all right, you got to come through. It was more just like, finally, like we have like a target for this thing. Like I want to put it out there for the world that it's going to happen. And then it turned into this thing where like the riders were like, fuck, like the weight of it just like came down on them.
Yeah.
But that was obviously not the intent. It was more just to be like, yeah, we talked about this for 3 years, and like finally you have something to look forward to. But yeah, it is funny that's like one of the things that like seems to have stood the test of time, like in that whole process, is that fucking countdown thing. It was actually pretty funny too, because then it like translated into the theater like in the moment.
Oh yeah.
Like it actually like was live in the theater, like up to like the point of the video launching. So yeah, it was like, again, kind of just like serendipity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This is also just a question from me, but I'm from France, and I remember watching Fully Flared. I think it came out in 2007, so I was 20 in 2007. And of course, being from France, I'm a huge Lucas fan, JB, Gigi Rousseau, like all these guys, the French Connection. Mm-hmm. And everybody in the video, of course, but like these guys specifically, since they're from here. And I remember watching that and feeling like, oh, this is dope. Like they're actually part of this thing. They're not just a little...
Right.
They're not in the credits with just a couple tricks or something. Like these European guys are getting like the full treatment, like real parts. Yeah. And I think, at least to my memory, I don't think I saw many videos that approached that way at that time. It felt like, European or outriders outside of the US and North America in general didn't have as much, weren't integrated as much in the teams, I guess, especially for shoe brands perhaps. But do you remember how you guys approached that, and how did you decide to, bring them on for this project and create the name French Connection? And I think it was the royal family for the British guys. And can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was definitely, I will say that one was maybe a little bit more thought out. And I think it was sort of a culmination of moments. I think there was a conscious effort to, like, there was this dynamic, like, maybe in that era where everything was based here. You'd go on these tours. Everybody had distribution in every country. Mm-hmm. You'd go on the trip in Holland and France, and, you're going to the demos, and almost always there's like somebody that's attached to the distribution in some capacity that's showing up to the demos. The dynamic could be weird because everybody was in their own heads at that point. So everybody felt like, oh, is this it was this whole show and proof thing, but it's really just kids trying to like live their dream, and like, here's their favorite people. and they're here and they just want to impress. But there was always this weird dynamic, right? Like we can just acknowledge that like there were moments in time where people were just like, what the fuck? Like, why are these kids here? You know? So you see that happen enough. And not to say like, I do think like people like globally were featured in videos. I mean, Powell, I think like used to do it a lot. Like, you know, it happened, but it did always feel like there were levels to it. You know what I mean? And it never really like, it didn't always feel like people were showcased on the same level, especially in that era.
Yeah.
And so like we were going on all these trips, and like I definitely specifically remember meeting like Lucas for the first time on the Beware the Flare tour with Gigi. Gigi was bringing him around, and we were all like, you know, we're at Bercy, he's fucking killing it. Like everyone's super hyped on him. And I remember having the capacity to like more direct, and we had like, you know, there were like dedicated marketing people like at these distributions because of the way Podium was setting them up. So you had like a little bit more resource to do a little bit more that was like on par with like what would be like, you know, essentially a global marketing POV then. And so I remember like we like working very specifically with the guy, like people that were like leading the distribution in France, you know, same with the UK, to be mindful of like, hey, we have the ability to like foster, you know, these people's dreams in a way that's like on par with like what we're doing here. So like, why not like bring them along in that process and actually make them feel, and not to mention like all the, like the skating was on the level. So there was no reason not to do it that way. So, I mean, we just kind of started built like, it was like, okay, we can, you know, it was Gigi and Lucas, and then later on JB came on, and then, you know, same with Nick and Danny in the UK, Brady, and then eventually Jesus. Yeah. So, but that was all me. Like, I was like definitely working with like my counterparts in these places where we had set up distribution through Podium to like make that happen. And then Ty definitely got on, but like, I will say, you know, like, when we'd go on these trips, Ty definitely like made an effort to like bring them along. And clearly you just see like their skating was insane. So like part of it spoke for itself. But then when it got to like the video, you know, Ty made like a real effort to do that like 6-frame thing. That was like kind of the intro. And I would say like maybe, not that they weren't like thinking about it, but it definitely wasn't like the priority like for the project to like have. But then I think when everybody kind of saw like it come together with that, then they were like, oh shit, this makes sense. And then it definitely became additive, like because it globalized it. You know what I mean? I think that was the approach, is to make it feel, to your point. I mean, clearly you remember it feeling like, hey, they're on the same level. And it didn't feel like there was this weird disconnect or like tiered approach to it. Yeah. And that was definitely by design. So yeah, I mean, there was like that wasn't as much of a coincidence, I guess, as a timer. Is like, we were really trying to like make it feel like, hey, the dream is at the same level for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I think it like kind of helped spark like the globalization, I guess, of like where we are now with like brands and just skaters and like nothing. I mean, obviously like modern media helped flatten it as well. But like, I do think like that was, I don't know. I'd like to think anyway that it like kind of helped like standardize that in some capacity.
I just have a few more from Aaron. So let's see, Aaron said, Lakai was at the forefront of footwear collabs with a handful of first-timers. You played a key role in negotiating those deals. Which collabs were your personal favorites? Thrasher, indie, or a specific girl/chocolate project?
You know, actually, executionally, I don't know. Just to kind of like keep going on the point we just made, I liked the cliche. Like, we did a lot of stuff.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, at that moment in time. And I thought that was cool because just again, like, we're like, it just had like a little bit of a global purview. Blueprint, like all the stuff with like McGee.
Yeah.
Just executionally, I like that stuff was really cool. I mean, obviously the stuff with like Thrasher and Indie like speaks for itself because like that. I want to say those were like Indie for sure. We were the first person to like that. Like Lakai was the first brand to do a footwear collab with Indie, so that was cool. I mean, I think probably the same with Thrasher. You know what I liked a lot is we did these things where we would do these rider stories with like all of the non-signature athletes. So we'd curate these packs with like, like Danny Garcia, Scott, Lenosi, Cairo, like that crew. And we'd put little like stories together based on just like, stuff that was like based off their personality. I always liked doing that stuff because, again, it's like the storytelling part of it. Like if you kind of click forward to today, like you're really trying to tell like a story about a skater that's like based on a fun, unique insight. And like that stuff was always really fun to me, the way it came together. And just execution on the shoes, there were like a couple that stand out that were like, just I specifically remember one we did a mark around books. Mm-hmm. And just like the detail of the shoe, like, and how it paralleled with like old school, like ornate books. Like that one was really cool to me. Those are the one. Of course, the Welsh Newport one. That I totally spaced on that one. Like but he fit into like that story, and I think that's the one that like will probably always like be at the top for me. Is just it was so obviously not rooted in like the most healthy insight, but it was like just so definitively like who he was at that point. And then the execution of it was just like so good that like, I mean, that one will always be like kind of special. And then it's Rob, and then it's Rob. So that one for sure is at the top.
Aaron also asked one old guy question. If you were 18 again, what would you do differently? Hope all is well with you and the family, Kelly.
Right on. Man, if I was 18, I don't know if I would do... I honestly don't know if I would do things a whole lot differently. Because I think, why try to change the course of things? I think everything that happened, kind of put me where I am. Exactly. I think that's the other thing is, big picture, nothing's linear, I would have never guessed... I always had aspirations to try to just maximize the opportunities that are put in front of you. But you never, you asked me the question earlier, what would I have done if things didn't work out? I don't know. I never thought about it that much. I never put a lot of thought into it. It was just looking at what was in front of you and figuring out how to maximize the opportunity that was in front of you and being open to maybe get out of your comfort zone and do something that you don't know about, or I don't know, that maybe other people are you're wasting your time or that doesn't feel cool. Because I will tell you that for me to be in the position I'm in now with the journey I've had, you can't, that's not linear. There's nothing linear about that. And I think if you get to places where there is just no linear, the path isn't linear.
Yeah.
And so I think to me, that's the thing where, you're in school and it's you got to graduate high school, then you got to go to a 4-year school, a D1 college, you got to major in something, and then you intern somewhere, and then you get on, sure, you get jobs that way, but I don't think jobs that are, maybe not a job that you're stoked to get out of bed every day and do.
Exactly.
And to me, I've obviously clocked in for 30 years straight, but I feel pretty fortunate that I've always been pretty excited about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference where it's not, there was no linear, if I'd gone the linear direction, that I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, I don't think I'd change anything, because I don't think I'd be where I am if I tried to change something. What would I have done? Stayed in school, graduated from university, and I don't know, been a fucking dentist. That's So I would not change anything.
All right, so let's do this one from Chris Carter.
Yes.
All right, so he said, "Congratulations, Kelly, on making a career out of skateboarding. Going from pro skateboarder to team manager to a solid marketing role is impressive. Having worked for DC, Lakai, and Nike, can you discuss the differences between the three brands in terms of their company cultures and their marketing approaches as it relates to skateboarders and skateboarding?"
Man, okay. There's a lot there. Yeah, and that's pretty amazing actually that I'm stoked that you got Carter to lean in on this, because he's never really skated for any of the brands, but obviously was around a lot of the people that did, and just saw the connection they had with Chris. That was to me always his superpower. One of them anyway, is his ability to just super genuinely connect with all of his team riders. I still don't know how he was able to get work done, because all I saw was him on the phone with his riders for hours and hours a day. He was clearly a mentor and probably a father figure to a lot of these people, and really leaned in and owned that in a way that was it was enviable for sure. I was kind of jealous I wasn't. Yeah. So man, there's a lot. I mean, first of all, yeah, the arc is pretty amazing. Like to be able to work for 3 brands that are pretty definitive at the moments in time that I worked for them was like, that will always be something I'm pretty stoked on. And not that I'm attributing that to myself, but just to be in those places at those moments in time and what you're able to learn is pretty, I mean, that's what I would say is like, I've just been able to learn so much from each one of those experiences. And like, so DC, for instance, a brand like the skate footwear thing was newish. There were some kind of established brands, not a lot of like, DC was like the kind of next new wave of like all these footwear brands. And so to be there at that moment in time, like that late 90s moment in time where it was just the most meteoric rise, like probably of a footwear. It was probably the most meteoric rise of a brand like I will ever be at. So to see something go from like, like ideas to like fruition as quick as it did and as grand as it did, I think I maybe hit on it earlier, but like just what you learn with that. And then the moment in time, like the advent of the digital age, like there were just so many like things colliding at that point that like made it, and then you have Ken and Damon, big thinkers, and probably I would say that they were maybe kind of almost showing bigger brands like how you do take kind of their ethos and like apply it in these spaces. So like, I think I've already said it, mentioned it, but like ideas like the Super Tour and the Mega Ramp and all that stuff, like these big like insights from athletes that are like seem like these grand ideas where it's just like, oh no, we can do this. Like and then just obviously the way the teams were built, both at DC and Lakai, like kind of mimicked that. Just like it was just about trying to capture the best of the best. And not that hadn't been done in skateboarding, but like, I think like, again, just curating a team is such a delicate thing, and to put a bunch of big personalities together and make it work and have everybody like, thrive off each other is, it's
challenging.
It's like an art and science. And so, I think obviously DC did that, I think every brand I've worked for has had that, and, kind of like that's been kind of the cornerstone of the approach is really to like, curate the teams in that way. And so, I think when I was at DC, it seemed like the sky was the limit. You know what I mean? I think at Lakai, it was a little bit of a slower burn. I mean, not that it wasn't meteoric, not that it didn't have its meteoric moments, but it was like a little bit more of a slow burn. The pace wasn't as frenetic, I guess, but still like a lot of exciting stuff happening. And clearly we're able to do a lot of similar things, maybe not on the same scale, but, the tours, the videos, very comparable. The riders, the way the team was curated, comparable.
Yeah.
And then, I think like at a place like where I am now, like I think there's actually like really in the approach, I think there's consistency across all 3. Like in terms of like skateboarding, I think like, then you're at a place like this and the opportunity kind of expands outside of skateboarding in a way that's like pretty intriguing, I think, especially for like the skaters that are involved. So like there's just like a cross-pollination and a recognition in a way that like maybe isn't as available like through like a brand that's like super rooted in just skating. Mm-hmm. So that's like probably the biggest like I guess evolution or like difference from like DC and Lakai to where I am now is like you just have like I don't know, I guess it's just like a bigger pool to swim in. There's still, I think like the authenticity thing, just like maybe that's a little bit more, you just have to work a little bit more at that because like it's a bigger place and there's whatever, it's just the brand's not like born from this place. So like there's like maybe a little bit more that, you just have to lean in a little bit more on like the authenticity part of things. But there's also so many people here that like kind of come from this that like it's not that big of a reach to stay on that track. So, I mean, really, fortunately for me, like there has been the thread of consistency has been like working with great people that are like great minds, at the head of these brands that have big ideas, the ability to put a team together that is, a meaningful team doing big things. And then the kind of freedom to learn on the fly, learn things in real time, grow, expand your abilities. So, I mean, I'm kind of, because I'm just trying to think like what the big like similarities and differences are. I mean, I think I touched on most of it, but not anything too drastically different across the three, if I'm being honest, which I think is I think it's fortunate. Just the faces, really. I mean, the ethos is the same. It's the dream. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like we are, and I've hit on that. It's like we want to curate a dream for people to aspire to. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we want to do that in a way that like the people that we're curating the dream for in real time can be proud of. You know, like this moment in time. So like, you know, I hope the people at DC, I think they're pretty proud of that chapter of their dream. Same with Lakai.
Sure.
You know, I think they're pretty proud of like that part of their dream. And I think like hopefully that holds for like, you know, where I am currently is like, yeah, you're just trying to like, you want people to be stoked on how they're living their dream at the moment in time, that you're there able to like maybe affect that in some way.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to just ask you if you could tell us kind of the positions you had at each brand, because so you started at DC, that was right after you retired from pro skating.
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding, you had more of a team management position at the beginning, at least. And so DC was for around 3 or 4 years. And then Lakai was a longer period of time, I think 15 years pretty much. So I'm sure there must have been a whole range of different activities you've done over those 15 years. And then Nike 10 years. For Nike, you are the global brand manager or something like that. I'm not sure what the exact title is.
That's right.
And so, yeah, could you just tell us a little bit about how kind of that developed?
Well, I think at that moment in time, there wasn't a whole lot of like structure or nomenclature for like what roles were in skating at skate brands. So you just kind of came, the most obvious way you came in was as a TM, right? It was like what is now, I think, called sports marketing, which, sports marketing involves a lot more now than like maybe being a TM did at that point. But yeah, you were just essentially managing the athletes. You were getting them the product they needed. You were, dealing with the requests from the brand to like make stuff happen for them. So tours, ads, big moments.
Were you also, I think you were also curating the team in the sense that you were considering, prospects, people that could get on the team. You've touched on that in other interviews, like you told about Jamie Thomas was maybe going to get on, was it Lakai, I think?
Yeah, there was a conversation.
So you were doing that for at DC and at Lakai, like kind of curating the team with the owners?
Yeah, so DC was like maybe a little bit more established when I got there, but like I was a loud voice for like Rick and Mike becoming a part of it. Scott and Huff were kind of already established, maybe a younger generation like Papalardo and Winning. It was just like a lot of triangulation with like other teams at the time. So like obviously was close with Rick and Mike. So, we're looking at like where they were trying to grow and like maybe pulling names into the conversation there. Same with Castrucci and Carter at Workshop Habitat, so like it was just a lot of like that was kind of like, there were obviously, Welsh, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it was like there was like an established crew of people, but then like, you're the Kalises of the world. I mean, even Stevie. So, yeah, there was a lot of just like, hey, let's look at this person, Robbie McKinley, Kenny Hughes. Yeah, there was, and it wasn't just, it was like, maybe it was me starting the conversation sometimes, maybe it was other people starting the conversation, but like, yeah, it's a group of people having the conversation,
Yeah.
And where it initiates can be, it's like, not always the same person initiating it, but yeah, that's kind of how that went. And then going over to Lakai, it was like maybe a little bit more intimate because it was a brand new company. And I wasn't part of like the early months of Lakai. It like Rick and Mike had decided to do it. They were obviously talking to Tim, working with Tim. And so when they broke the news, and so when they broke the news, like, I think everybody's always just kind of, that stuff's never awesome in the moment, right? So people were kind of like, whatever, disappointing, or not even disappointing, but like, that's a bummer, like, because you could clearly see the strength of like that group of people. But so they kind of started doing that thing, and I wasn't like part of it right away. But then pretty shortly after, like, I don't know, I think it was just like probably mutually obvious that like, I don't know. I couldn't really shelf my feelings, I guess, and just kind of move on. So I kept like kind of letting that get in the way of just like moving past things. And I think like it was just like, all right, man, maybe you just should not be here. So that's what happened. And then like fortunately I was able to kind of get in, you know, slide in with what Rick and Mike are doing pretty early on. Tim, you know, I ended up moving in with Tim before I got my own place in LA. Yeah, I lived on Tim's couch for a while. And so like kind of in that moment, it was definitely like Rick, Mike, and Tim, I think, having a lot of conversations with people. But then when I ended up kind of getting there in a more formal capacity, then yeah, we were all, I think, just, you know, they allowed me to throw in, I think, some ideas. And then they were like, yeah, okay, like you should do the outreach and start talking to people. So I definitely had a conversation with Jamie, with Abe as well.
Oh yeah, Abe, yeah.
Yeah. So back to the question, which was, you know, what were the roles? Like when I first got to Lakai, it was definitely, you know, more on like that traditional TM, you know, modern day sports marketing. And then it quickly evolved into like these other roles. So I was working very closely with Mueller on just doing the catalog stuff, the ad stuff. And so I, you know, learned a lot by doing like all the catalogs, like learned the process of like product creation and bringing product to market through that process. So it was like, you know, eventually would go to all the sales meetings and kind of present like the marketing point of view to all the reps and distributors, which essentially is like kind of the foray into the brand side of things. And then, you know, you layer in that's like early social media. So I kind of adopted that responsibility. So definitely like ran the Lakai Instagram handle for quite some time. You know, then like the e-commerce thing kind of came to the fore a bit more. And so like worked with an agency to like build the Lakai site to accommodate e-commerce and like kind of managed all the back end of that, which was an interesting moment in time. I mean, it was cool to develop the site and like do all the things and like get it up and running. But then when it got to like having to manage it seasonally, like that became, yeah, I mean, that was its own beast in itself. Learned a lot, but like definitely, yeah, it wasn't, it definitely wasn't what I wanted to be doing long term.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, still was up until like probably 2010, probably like right after like fully flared, was still like pretty active with like putting the tours together and executing the tours. You know, then we like kind of got like started bringing in like, you know, more like dedicated TMs. And so like wasn't out in the streets as much like from that point. So, I mean, to be honest, it was like a spectrum of things that I was doing. And like I said, like earlier, the experience in being able to do all those things, like I think is like, it was like such a valuable like chunk of time because it really did open my eyes to like what it really meant to like really do a brand end to end, you know, like build product from writer insights, you know, come up with like narrative, like seasonal narratives or athlete based storytelling around product, bring that product to market, which is essentially what like brand marketing is. So I also said earlier, like that type of incubator experience I'm so fortunate for that moment in time to have been able to like to be at brands that are experiencing that type of growth at a moment in time where there's also the advent of like all these new tools. So you're able to grow and you're able to learn a lot of these tools in real time. I mean, it's
very valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that you get from like a formal like school.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
And just before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to ask you about your transition from Lakai to Nike. How did you experience that arriving at Nike after 15 years at Lakai and almost 20 years altogether in the shoe game? Yeah, how did you adjust to this new environment, kind of?
Well, I guess I was not, you know, I didn't know quite how complex like maybe a place like Nike is. So I will say like coming into a place like this in your sort of quote unquote comfort zone, it made it less stressful, I guess, to like integrate into it. I mean, it took some time to understand like the machinations of things. how all the different functions work together, their roles. Like, I mean, that's the, like, you know, at a place like where we came from, you have these people that are these sort of like Swiss Army knives that are kind of doing a little bit of everything. And I think, like, you know, at places like this, everything's a lot more like specialized by, like, you know, need.
Yeah.
And so that maybe took a little bit of like, just getting used to, where it's like, oh, you don't really necessarily have to try to lean into everything. Like your responsibility is more to just like kind of set the vision almost, and then allow all the people that are specialized in like certain parts of the process to then take that and like do their part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so just understanding that one person doesn't have to do everything was like kind of maybe a little bit of adjustment, but also like, you know, it's like, okay, this is like how like something like this, like a big engine like
operates.
This, like kind of like, how all the pieces like work together and move. So, you know, that was probably the biggest adjustment. But then once like that all kind of like clicked, I understood all of the pieces, you know what I mean? Like I said, by working at a place, I understood the value of all the pieces. So it wasn't like I had to spend a lot of time, like, whatever, just learning the different facets of it. Yeah, it was just more like, just how to do your part to keep everything like, you know, humming, I guess. That was probably the biggest adjustment, I guess, or whatever, just part of the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then also just having the, you know, seeing how other parts of Nike, like, you know, whether it's, you know, how running approaches something or basketball or training or like whatever it is, like, I think it's cool to be able to see like those things kind of because it's, again, just part of like learning more and expanding your horizons. Like it doesn't always have to be like so linear and one size fits all. There's good ideas there's good ideas that are coming from everywhere. And, you know, same with, I think, skateboarding, like good ideas coming from skateboarding to other parts of the organization. So yeah, I think for me, that was probably the integration curve.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's do this next one from Kaspar Van Lierop.
KVL.
Yeah, KVL, exactly. Yeah.
KVL.
Who used to work at Nike and now is at ASICS.
All right, yeah.
He asks, of all the impactful jobs you have had at various skate brands, which one did you have the most memorable experiences at?
Damn.
That's probably hard to favor one over the others, but yeah.
I mean, luckily, I would say I've had incredibly memorable experiences at everywhere I've been. You know, I've been so fortunate to see the first mega ramp, like, in real time, to be on those super tours, you know, to then going and doing, you know, equally, like, you know, Beware the Flare, this, like, cool, like, tour / video, to a video, like, fully flared. And then you come to a place like where I am now, and again, it just comes back to like the dream and enabling the dream and being able to see, like, work with people, especially like from a collaboration standpoint, where like you really see how much something like this and working on, you know, something is just like a footwear project is like life-changing for people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how much they value that experience and what it can, like, how it can kind of like catapult them from their own personal, from a confidence standpoint, but also like maybe like whatever entity like they're embodying like through the project, like how that can like move forward. So that kind of stuff to me, like, I think that kind of stuff right now is like what's like super powerful, is just seeing like how much, you know, something that like maybe you could take it for granted, but like, you know, this could be like a pinnacle, like, again, as part of someone's dream, like as the whatever person starting off in their own little world, skating, you know, whatever they're trying to overcome, like through skateboarding in the community of skateboarding, and then like actually on the skateboard itself, and to like never think maybe you would have an opportunity at a place like this to do something that like kind of highlights your story and who you are, and like, you know, that's big. It's and it's impactful for people, and I think to see that. And again, to see how people like kind of take that and like continue to push themselves forward, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, again, so I'm not sure if you ever worked with him, but I know he did an interview with you, which was amazing, as all his interviews are always amazing. Eric Swisher asked, Hey Bird, in your always insightful opinion, what have been the 5 worst trends in skateboarding over the years that have driven you absolutely nuts?
Oh, man.
Hope all is well, bud.
That's pretty awesome. Well, yeah, actually we have worked together. He was actually on the digital team when I came to Nike and was here for, I don't know, at least 3 years.
Okay.
Of my early tenure here. So yeah, man. I mean, he also, like, you know, I'm sure you've seen the interview, but he did one of like my favorite interviews that I've ever done. He's just good. Like, he's insightful and he's good at like bringing, you know, all the things out of people. So
yeah. The
Shout
best
out to
interview in
Swish.
skateboarding for me.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, the 5 worst trends. This is so. I don't know. I mean, I guess I was probably part of one. I mean, I think people would say pressure flips. Let's start with pressure flips. I think people would probably say that one wasn't like that awesome, even though like maybe you see it a little bit more recently. But like, yeah, I think like post that moment in time, people are like, well, that was, what the hell were we doing?
Yeah.
And I'm definitely guilty of like a lot of that stuff.
Some people can do some good ones. I mean, I've been seeing a few. Like, I think Brad Cromer, had a pretty epic one recently. Eric Ellington, of course. But I mean, there's just a few people. Like
Nate Sherwood too. Don't sleep on Nate. He fucking made it worked well for him. So, what else trend wise, man? This one. I mean, I would say the combination of giant skate shoes and tight pants together was pretty bad. Like, just that look, I don't think that look aged very well. Like, when you see it on video, that moment in time.
Very true.
I don't know. Probably focusing boards was pretty bad too.
Oh yeah.
Blank boards and tees, that probably wasn't that awesome either, just from like a circularity standpoint. Like, again, if you should be trying to like showcase the dream that you want people to eventually have, and I think like maybe that wasn't the best representation. You know, I think like for that moment in time, it maybe looked cool and there was a lot of reasons people were doing it, but like, you know, if you walked into a skate shop and it was just all blank boards, like what's the kid? What is the kid who's staring at that wall really dreaming about at that point? You know? So that was probably one of them. And then probably fucking 36 millimeter wheels was pretty bad. So a lot of bad trends from like a very specific moment in time. Like, trying to skate on bricks with 36 millimeter wheels. Like, it's amazing that anything innovative happened at that moment in time, you know? So yeah, was that 5? That was probably 5.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. Let's do this one from Hunter Muraira. Am I saying his name right? Muraira, yeah. Hunter. Yep. A Nike colleague as well.
Yeah, he was definitely a pretty integral part of me being where I am now.
So he asked a music-related question, and I think we talked about it earlier. He said, what is your top 3 Priest songs?
I would say Diamonds and Rust, The Reaper... the Ripper, and probably Screaming for Vengeance. It's funny because so obviously that's derives from that graphic that I had. That was like that Priest graphic. And not that I was like a huge like Judas Priest person, like, and I didn't like grow up listening to Judas Priest, but like whatever, like you're around the skate park at Houston, so like you hear like a pretty broad range of that type of stuff. And so it was like one of those things where in that era, you know, you were just looking for inspiration for a graphic. And like that was like one of the ones where like kind of the light bulb went off for me for like you could really lean into the bird thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, the way this thing looks, it's like the fucking ultimate bird. So it clearly worked. And then I felt like from that, I actually did like almost felt obligated to be like, okay, I got to kind of know a little bit more about Judas Priest than like maybe I currently do, because clearly people are going to like call me on it and ask me about it. So, I mean, whatever, I do genuinely like those songs. But yeah, it's not like I'm like listening to like Judas Priest in heavy rotation. But that's good. I'm glad he put me on the spot. I wonder if he thought I'd even know 3 Judas Priest songs.
Probably. That was probably
like off the top, if he thought I'd even know 3 Judas Priest songs. But yeah, good one. I like that. Shout out Hunter.
Okay, I have a couple questions from this guy, Jason Patrick Searcy.
JP Searcy. Man, you really went deep. Like, that's pretty sick that you found that, like, you like put it together to go to Searcy. All right.
I got some help from some other people, but
okay. Nice one.
So he said, aside from Chris Casey, rest in peace, and an unnamed professional skater throwing a mattress from the 7th floor of your apartment building and nearly killing a handful of people, what is the sketchiest thing a roommate or tour companion has ever done to endanger your life or livelihood? Bonus if you want to name them.
Man, I've definitely been in some like interesting ones. What has a tour companion done to endanger my life? Oh shit, it's probably more like their own lives than mine. I mean, there's some funny ones, like, and not like endangering lives, but I mean, a funny story. I think Megan even tells it like somewhat frequently, but like on one of I think it was the first super tour, we were in Holland. Mm-hmm. And there was like maybe a skate park and a squat or like something like that. And so we were there. It was like kind of like, it was like an evening thing. And so everybody's there hanging out, like whatever, just doing what you do, being rowdy. And there was like, it was next to a canal, obviously, because it's like in Amsterdam. Okay. And there was a boat there. And it looked like, I don't know, it just looked like some like wooden boat that was like inoperable, that like, you know, maybe somebody had just like pulled out of the canal and it was just sitting there. And like classic Rick, he just, I don't know what like sparked it, but he just like rolled over to the boat and like pushed it into the canal. Okay. And this dude came out and he was just livid, like so bummed. And obviously he's like speaking Dutch, so nobody really knows what's happening. And Rick's just kind of like, oh, like, so somehow like it gets de-escalated or what. I don't even really remember how we got out of it. But it turns out that the guy had been working to restore the boat for like quite a long time. It was like a personal project where like he had been working to restore the boat for like quite some time. And Rick just right into the canal with it. Like, and honestly, I would assume that like somebody helped him get it out and like, you know, whatever. But yeah, that one, I specifically remember that one, just maybe because Meg keeps it alive.
That's funny.
There's a lot of fireworks moments with Rick. I mean, everybody has like, you know, some fireworks interaction with him. I don't know. Yeah, maybe Carroll talked about that in his, or just like, I mean, Carroll's been heavily endangered by Rick for his entire friendship with him to the point
really?
Where,
okay.
Yeah, those guys are, I mean, just classic, like, you know, they're like brothers, obviously. Yeah. So just brotherly type stuff. But, man, another one, like, we were on I will say the sketchiest I've ever felt anywhere on a trip, or the most sketched out I've ever felt was in Russia. So in like 2005, we did a tour to Moscow and St. Petersburg. And it just was like one of those places where you just felt like, man, I could disappear. And like, you know, the language barrier is so broad. Yeah. And everybody was like, St. Petersburg was like maybe not as bad, but I remember at Moscow it just felt like everybody was super stone-faced. Like you didn't really know, like it felt very militarized. Like everywhere we went and skated, it just felt like there was some like kind of military presence, or some people that like wanted to mess with you in some way where you were like, I don't know, are they going to just come grab us? And, you know, which, I mean, bizarrely and ironically, I think people are experiencing that like here in a lot of ways in real time, which is just so fucking wild to think that like that's where we are now. Yeah. But yeah, so we're there like in that, and there was definitely a situation with Mark where like we were at an airport. Yeah, we were at an airport and like he wasn't doing too hot, and Rick was kind of like trying to like whatever, just like help him navigate like the airport. And we get on a plane, and you know, maybe he's a little rowdy on the plane. And then we get to St. Petersburg, and there was like essentially like MPs like waiting there for him. And they like came into the baggage claim and like grabbed him and like walked him just like out of the airport. And everybody was just like, oh man. And it was the thing that I was like, this is the thing that I'm like so scared of. Like, they can just take you out of here and you like have no recourse. You have no idea where they're going. Luckily, the girl that was sort of our fixer, her dad was like a diplomat. Some, you know, he had like a position in like a governmental position, and she called him and was like, you know, they took this guy. Yeah. And so he was like, all right, hold on. He did his thing. He called her back and he was like, okay, go here. He's here. Get him. And like, you got to get him out of there. Okay. And so we did get him, and he ended up like going home the next day. So it was like, it worked out about as good as it could have. Like, it could have gone like real sideways.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, it was stressful. I think like it was crazy. It was like scary and stressful. And like I said, if we didn't have that girl with us who had the dad who I do not know what would have happened, but it was wild. So I'll definitely always remember that one, because you see those like Locked Up Abroad type shows, or just like those shows where just like, the travel thing goes like totally sideways. And that was one where I was like, oh man, this could be one of those moments.
For sure, yeah. How long did they keep him for until you could?
It wasn't that long in the grand scheme of things. It wasn't. No, he like, we got him out within like say 2 or 3 hours of like them taking him. But yeah, it was
scary.
We weren't sure like where exactly where it was going to go or where he was going to end up. So
thank God you got him out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably the most like definitive one in terms of like, it was actually scary. Like a lot of the other stuff is just, whatever. Not that it's like super funny that like a guy's like life project got like thrown in a canal, but at least like nobody's like really in like total danger, jeopardy when that's happening. So yeah. Those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's like plenty more. But yeah, no. There was like a real tour where like I had probably just left the tour, but like I don't know if you remember, there was an ad where the van was like totally smashed up. Mandoli was driving. It was like one of those tours where like you're driving through the night, like kind of like that story I told earlier of just like, okay, we're going for, we got to cover 400 miles and be at the spot by tomorrow. So you're like trying to drive through the night, and like, yeah, he fell asleep at the wheel and rolled the van. And luckily nobody was like, I think he probably like had the most injury. But even he like was able to kind of walk away. But yeah, that was probably, I think I had just left that tour, like just left it like a day or two before that. So that was about as close as I got to like something like, sketchy like that.
He asked a second question, Jason. He said, who's your favorite American politician? No sarcasm.
Okay. Favorite American politician. I would say like my favorite one, just because like I would probably have been Obama.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty easy. Yeah, I think, somebody that was like real and kept it real and was like, trying to do the right thing for everybody, even people that didn't vote for him. Mm-hmm. In my lifetime, that's who I would say has been the favorite. Yeah.
Let's do this other one. This one's an audio one.
Hey, Kelly. Great that you're a guest at Beyond Boards. Can't wait to listen to the episode. And here's my question for you as the global brand manager of Nike SB. So we saw this year the 20th anniversary of the P-Rod 1 and the re-release of the P-Rod 1. And in 2027, it's the 20th anniversary of the P-Rod 2, which is actually my favorite Nike SB shoe of all times. Can we expect a re-release or will it come back? Let us know. So the 25th anniversary of Nike skateboarding. That would be a great one to celebrate. Let me know. Thanks, Kelly. Have fun. Bye.
Amazing. Jürgen.
Yes. Okay, cool. You recognize his voice. Yeah. Awesome.
Skate Museum, of course. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, he's obviously what he does is incredible. His curation of the history of skateboarding is unparalleled for sure. Mm-hmm. He was like pretty integral in like that 20 years of SB exhibition. That there was one in Copenhagen, one in London, one in LA. So worked with him pretty extensively to, at least facilitate him putting those things together. So yeah, he's rad. Mm-hmm. I don't know how well you know Jürgen, but he's like, I think the way he curates and displays the history of skateboarding is very reflective of like who he is as a person as well. He's rad. Man, I don't know for sure if that's a conversation. Yeah, I think like that those conversations always originate with like the product team and like obviously in tandem with like the sports marketing team. So who knows? But I'm excited to see like what's in store for 25 years of SB. That's crazy that they're going to hit that milestone that like SB's will have been in the game that long in just a couple years. Especially when whatever, people are probably still like warming up to the idea of like SB being in the skate space, or at least, I don't know, there's probably some like holdovers that are, but like, you know, I think most people are just like, they only know this space with SB in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that it's been 25 years is pretty incredible.
Wild. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's hope that I would assume it will be recognized and celebrated in you know, a comparable way, because yeah, it is a huge milestone.
For sure.
So yeah, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm sure they'll cook up some amazing stuff for 25 years. Yeah.
I remember seeing, I think it was probably the first campaign for Nike SB back in, I assume it was 2002. And I remember seeing, I think it was a Gino Iannucci switch flip photo in black and white. I don't know if it was the very first campaign, but it was very early stages of Nike SB. I was 15. I remember being so confused seeing Gino and Nikes. I was like, what the hell is this? And but then eventually, you know, like everybody, or at least a lot of people, it grew on me, and I learned to appreciate what Nike SB has been bringing to skateboarding for the last 20 plus years. But at the very beginning, I remember being just like, I don't understand how is this possible? You know, like how Gino, like in Nikes, it just seems so surreal.
Yeah, I would say like maybe the antipathy was like the commitment, you know, like I think like people were like, people understood what Nike could bring to the space, but maybe they weren't sure how long the commitment would be. Because I mean, it wasn't the first foray of Nike into skateboarding. So I think it was like, is there a true commitment? I mean, and going back to the prior question, I think the answer is that 25 years later, that was
they're pretty committed.
You know, that was the threshold of like, we're going to commit to this thing.
Yeah,
and they did, and they have.
Let's do this next one. I think I have a few audio ones to wrap this up.
Yo, what's up, Bird? It's Kebs hopping in here to ask a couple of questions. My first one is, as somebody that helped define the early 90s aesthetic in skateboarding, what are some brands from back in the day you hope to never see come back? Like, you don't want to see a Gen Z, Gen Alpha kid at the skate park rocking this brand, and what are some brands that you hope come back? Me personally, I'd love to see some TSA. And then my second question is, as somebody at Nike Skateboarding, I feel like you get to help make a lot of dreams come true, from pro skaters to like community orgs like, you know, Bronx Girl Skate, Skate Like a Girl, Fro Skate. I guess, what are some things you're most proud of in your role at Nike that you've been able to be a part of? All right, man, that's all I got. Good luck, and can't wait to hear the answers. Peace.
That's awesome. She super hit on that dream thing. That's cool. She like kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, yeah, what she's done through Skate Like a Girl, like with that whole crew over the
very
years.
Very inspiring.
Like super, I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, to open the dream up to like a broader spectrum of people, I think is good, because yeah, the more people you have aspiring to the dream, obviously the better off the totality of skating is, right? And I think like,
absolutely.
Yeah, it just brings all the cool stuff to skateboarding that skateboarding has always like kind of represented, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Okay, brands from the 90s that you do
that you don't want to see come back.
God damn. Oh man, there's so many. I mean, dude, not even really like a skate brand, but like a brand that I think is like synonymous with like that era. Cause I just think of like ASR trade shows and seeing people at ASR trade shows and just being like, okay, this looks ridiculous. Is like, is Jinko.
Oh,
remember
yeah.
Jinko?
Yeah, a little bit.
Jeans?
Yeah.
And I do feel like maybe like as like recently, like maybe that some of that stuff like has bubbled up a little bit, like just those like extreme jeans, like extreme like rave jeans. So those for me were like always a no-go, like just the street sweepers. Yeah, just too much denim. So I'd say no-go on that. And then, God, what's another brand?
Yeah, it's hard. I was trying to think of it. I couldn't come up with a good answer to that question.
Yeah.
There was one brand that I think it was very short-lived, but I didn't really enjoy much seeing ads for or anything. It was called 88. Does that ring a bell? 88.
Oh, yeah.
That was like for a minute or something, like a couple years. I don't know how long it lasted, but I think Corey Duffel might have been on the team and some other guys. But I remember just being a little like, this looks kind of...
I think the name like maybe threw a lot of people off.
Double H
like,
and kind of
once
the
you kind of
message,
read into it a little bit. I mean, who like I like to think that wasn't intentional, but once
hopefully
people started leaning into that, I think that was probably not super helpful for them.
For sure.
What else? Well, just living in San Diego, like, we'd be at Pacific Drive a lot. So it was, you'd always just kind of see like the whole range of stuff like people were trying to do in Pacific Drive. And that's certainly remember like, passing time by like either just like tripping out on stuff or watching other people trip out on stuff. So I'm trying to think. I mean, I definitely remember like the first time I put the D3 on my foot at Pacific Drive, it was just like mind blowing. Just like, and for what it became, like, whatever, we all know the legacy of the shoe and what it became in the space, but like in terms of being just like a pure skate shoe, it was always like pretty mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
But whatever, Osiris was trying to curate the dream for people, so it's fine. They were doing their thing. God, what's another fucking crazy...
Another brand that came to mind for me was Sheep Shoes. I've actually never seen any in real life, but I do remember hearing about it. Not sure what time exactly that happened, but I think it was short-lived as well. It was out of the, what's it called? The Soul Technologies camp, I think, right?
Yeah. They were trying to do like a vegan thing. I think
exactly.
Good intentions, but like maybe, especially at that point in time, like the materials, the synthetics, just like, I just don't think it was like very developed then. So like there just weren't a lot of options for like materials in general. And then certainly materials that would like hold up to like skateboarding.
Yeah.
So I think, it was probably pretty hard. You could only do so much with like a handful of materials before it felt like redundant. I mean, that's my assumption. Because I think they had the right intent. I think the intention was good. Sure. I just think it was like probably hard to like really execute it in a way that didn't feel redundant. That didn't feel redundant at that point in time. Mm-hmm. What other crazy brands were there? I mean, I think Dub was a brand. And it wasn't necessarily like a skate brand. It was like it was like part of the DC, like it was like Dub drawers in DC.
Right.
But I think like what they were doing was like pretty, it was like they were trying to merge like outerwear and like street culture. And I think like the execution of that was pretty, I don't know. I thought it was like pretty definitive and maybe a little bit ahead of its time in terms of like where like streetwear is just like a given now. And maybe like they were like a little bit at the forefront of that. And I think like just design wise, like what Ollie and Damon and that crew did was just like, I don't know, the stuff still looks like when I see it today. I mean, it's bold, it's bright, but like it still a lot of it still feels timeless to me. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, maybe I can't even remember if there's been like, how like they did the Palace collab with drawers, like maybe there's like some iteration of that with Dub there was at some point, but like I think what Dub did, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think what Dub did, like that would still work in the modern, like I think parts of what they did would still work. I mean, down to like the visual idea of it, the ads, how they built the team, just like even like when how they were doing parties and how they were putting parties together, like I think it would still work in today's like world.
Okay.
I also think maybe like brands just sunset because like they had their moment in time. It's like maybe you don't always have to bring a brand back.
Yeah.
Maybe it's cool to just romanticize like that moment in time and just be like, man, that's cool. Let's just keep it there. Like that was like awesome, and it was like such a part of that part of my life. But like, we don't have to try to like bring it back to like relive that part of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure. We've been seeing that quite a lot, like some brands trying to come back. Like I remember seeing recently Action coming back, and I mean Action was dope, and I'm sure all the intentions were good, but I don't know if it's relevant anymore, in today's space and this saturated footwear market. Like does it make sense, Yeah.
It's a fine line, because if you're bringing it back because like all the things I talked about, like the aesthetic, the visual ID, the brand ethos, all those things can be like modernized, and like you can like apply them in a modern way to like modern youth, and like, like bring modern youth along on like that same journey, and it makes sense, then like cool. But if you're trying to do it just to romanticize a moment in time, just to like romanticize a moment in time, I think like, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think that's a lot of like the current political environment is people just like looking at a moment in time and being like, it was only good then, and trying to wind the clock back to that moment in time. And it's like, nah, like time moves forward. Like you're never going to say it, whatever. You just have to like move forward with time and just like evolve. I think it's like just live in the modern world, and like, sure, there's like certain things that like maybe from certain eras like make sense, but like you can't just totally rewind the clock back and say this moment in time is the only time that was good and everything has to look like that moment in time. All the rules have to be synonymous with like that moment in time. I don't know. It's weird to me. Yeah.
What about the second part, like things that you're most proud of that you've been able to be a part of at Nike, in terms of the organizations you guys have supported throughout the years?
Yeah. I mean, it's so broad. I'm pretty, like, it's hard to say like one thing because you don't want to, I don't know, I don't want to forget something because you do so much. Like, to be here for as long, I've been here 10 years now. The amount of projects from the Olympics to video projects to like all, this like wealth of collaborations to like signature shoe launches, there's so much there that it's hard to say. Like, I think the bucket of those things, like just in themselves, like is, to be able to work on the Olympics, and it's not going to be for everybody, obviously, and you're not going to make it right for everybody, but to try to bring like the core tenets of skateboarding, the thing that like we all know and love about skateboarding, and to like have like try to elevate that in that moment, and have it in, so to sort of invert the idea of like, okay, all the eyes of the world are on skateboarding, like let's show the world like what really fuels the communities of skateboarding. Like, I think that's cool. Like, I like that idea, instead of just being like, oh, the Olympics is gonna just like misrepresent this whole thing. And there's a lot of things that like aren't that awesome, but like you just gotta look at it as an opportunity to be like, okay, maybe you got this wrong, but like here's this, and kind of like whatever, just take advantage of like how broad the viewership is in that moment in time. Just try like through what you can control to show people like what it really is. So I think like I'm stoked on that. I think obviously signature shoe launches are cool because it's, I think it's the ultimate culmination of a dream for people. And so to see, especially at a place like this, so to see that dream realized for people at a place like this is pretty, it's pretty memorable, I think. Like, and again, you want to do it in a way that people are like proud of, and that, they can look back on this moment as a signature athlete and be like proud of like how it came to be. And then, I mean, dude, the wealth of collaborations, I already said it, but just like seeing how it can, move people and organizations forward and like really just inject something in them that like gives them the energy and confidence to keep going and like keep hopefully helping stoke opportunity for people to try to like chase that same dream and realize that same dream. So I mean, obviously what they, working with Kristin and that crew and all the organizations that have like come through that, I think, there's so much of that within like what they do. So, I mean, but and also like the anniversary moment's cool. Like the 20-year anniversary was super rad just to see like, that was for everybody that's been a part of the SB and this journey forever. And again, for for them to hopefully feel some part of like what they did and how they contributed to this thing, like within that, because I mean, like that was the intent, is to make everybody that's contributed in some way, shape or form feel seen in that moment. So I don't know, that's the stuff that like comes to mind immediately. It's not just like one thing or one project, but it's like these like groups of things that like I think in totality probably represent like a pretty broad spectrum of like what people are aspiring to within this whole thing.
All right, let's do these two last ones.
Bird, we've talked about many things over the years. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is we're probably both able to be categorized as rad dads. And my question is, I'm glad to be a rad dad, but when is it bad to be a rad dad? Unpack that for me.
I love it. Yeah, hell yeah, Rattray. Glad we made it into that pantheon. When it's bad to be a rad dad is when you're at the playground 2 blocks from your house an out that you went to with your kid to be like, let's go play for a minute and then I'll just like skate over here for like 20 minutes. And 2 hours later, you're still stuck trying to do some trick. You're losing your mind. The kids are just sitting there like trying their best to like encourage you, but also clearly like over it. Other parents there just like, what is this guy doing? and you're just so stressed out. You look like a lunatic. But then when you roll away, everybody's like, yeah, like, hell yeah. Like, then they're stoked and supportive, and like, maybe hopefully they remember like the perseverance of that.
Yeah.
And it, somehow that's like lodged in their brain that like, if you persevere, you will almost always get to like, yeah, where you want to go. But yeah, man, in the moment, it does not feel that rad.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Everything else is pretty good though. But yeah, in that moment, like 3 hours in, 2 hours in, they're just like, what am I doing? And the kids are just like, also the kids are like, I don't know, is this fun? Like, it doesn't look like he's having that much fun.
Yeah.
But he keeps going. So yeah.
What's wrong with him?
It's fun though. It's fun. So yeah, that's the fine line between rad dad and like reel it in dad.
Okay, well, speaking about fatherhood, let's do this very last one.
What up, Bird? Surprise! First up, I just want to share my admiration that you've managed to channel your love of skateboarding into a full-blown career. It has been really inspiring to witness, and not many people get the opportunity to work in the thing that they're so passionate about, and you made that happen for yourself. So, super proud of you, and go you. That does lead me to my question, because for the last 20 years, I've watched you fight to maintain the integrity of the sport. I'm curious what you would say, your words of wisdom for those coming up in the industry to keep skateboarding authentic as the sport evolves, because I know that is something you are super invested in.
All right, that's pretty amazing. You got to. That's sneaky. That's funny. That's good that she kept that from me. That
yeah,
good.
She did.
That's
she didn't
awesome.
tell you I reached out. Okay.
No. I mean, it's funny because she knew I was doing this, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this podcast thing, and I don't know. I guess she game faced it pretty good. Like, oh, okay, like what is that? Whatever. Yeah, okay. I can't wait to like get her. on that
I
one
appreciate
tonight.
her keeping the surprise. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan.
So what I would say is represent the dream that you wish other people to have, the experience that you wish to have in the most circular way possible. I guess like that, like whatever the experiences that you have and the dream that you're living, just try to do that in a way where you think it will allow opportunity for people that are looking at you that want to have that experience to have it. Like create that on-ramp for people, like that's what I can say. I mean, skateboarders run skateboarding. At the end of the day, man, skateboarders run skateboarding. So like just build, curate, and perpetuate the thing that you aspired to do. Like you got to, and I said earlier, like maybe the dream doesn't manifest itself the same way across generations, but the dream is still there in some way, shape, or form. Like, and you have to, for this thing to like move forward, you have to inspire people to want to do it and to do all the shit you have to do, make all the sacrifices you have to make to really get good enough to do it. And so just, that's what I would say, is just do it in a way that feels like that opportunity is going to be there for generations to come. It may not always look the same for everybody, but as long as there's something there to aspire to, then like that, then people will keep doing all the things to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah. And that's across the spectrum. That's not like, there's so many variables in that, but like, it doesn't mean you have to start a brand, but maybe like, there's so many different paths, I guess now. You don't always have to start a brand to like have that be the path, but like, and you're not always going to be able to control the circularity of your path, but like hopefully whatever it is, there's inspiration in that path for other people to like want to lean into it and like make it happen.
Before I let you go, I just wanted to just have you listen to this other question. I didn't put it in because I think we covered pretty much the question and other questions, but I just wanted to have you listen to it.
Okay.
I think you mentioned this guy a few minutes ago.
Bird, what up? Mandoli here. Hey man, got two questions for you. Number one, being that you have been in the skateboard industry for a good minute and skated professionally for some time, what is some advice that you give or would like to give some of these young guys that you're around coming up and doing the professional skateboard thing? You know, given all your experience and everything, like what is some OG sage advice that you would give or do give these young folks coming up? And then my second question is pretty simple. Why do you still skate? You know, what is it that you get out of it? And that's it, man. Love you, bro. Peace.
That's awesome. Mandoli. I'm glad you played that for me because we did like kind of touch on Mandoli on that like the van rollover story. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't actually really talk to Shawn that much. I obviously see like what he's doing in LA with like his fellowship and all that stuff, which is cool. He like pipes in like on my social every now and again. So, I mean, it seems like he's doing super rad and found like a cool path for himself, like past actual skateboarding. But for me, the skate thing, like I said it, like the reason I still skate is for my kids, you know, to like show my kids what a love of something and like perseverance, like what it looks like, and, you know, hopefully like instill some part of that in their heads. I also am skating now because like I'm not in my own head. I'm not that, like, for so long I was like in my own head and scared to skate around people. I mentioned that, like, you know, you around people, you just intimidate yourself. And and I don't care now. Like, and by virtue of that, I'm like doing stuff that like I'd never done before. Like, you know, like maybe I was like, oh, this isn't cool or it's not hard enough or whatever. So I just like wouldn't do it. So like now I'm just like, just do it and whatever. Not that I'm just like doing any old trick, but like I'm doing stuff where like, I've really legitimately not done a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now, and certainly like not filmed a lot of it. So I mean, I'm just doing it because I'm just doing it because I can. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like fuck it, I can still do this. There's not a lot of people on the planet that can do it, and I'm not doing it at like the highest level, but still like there's a talent that all of us have that like maybe we take for granted or overthink like what our peers think sometimes, but like you should not like take for granted your ability to do something that the smallest tranche of people on the planet can actually do. And all these like so many people would love to be able to do this thing, you know, like they would love to be like able to do this thing in any capacity that like we can do it. So like I think like that shouldn't be taken for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, advice I would give kids or whatever, like I mean, if you love this thing, like I guess people already are willing to sacrifice a lot to try to like, you know, maximize the potential of it and the opportunity, chase the dream, etc. So like, yeah, I would say do that, but probably doesn't hurt to have like a little like plant, like a backup. I think just so many of us, like there was not a lot of thought about like the backup or just like what happens post and whatever. It's hard to like instill that in people at like a certain moment in time. But like, yeah, I think like to me, I guess I had maybe in my head like a little bit of a backup plan, maybe like not like a total means to like, maybe it was going to just be like a figure it out as you go on that side of things as much as it was going to be like on the skate side of things. But I would say find maybe what your like a passion is within this world, because there are a lot of things that like are parallel to skateboarding or that like not parallel, that like kind of cross over with skateboarding that are like equally fun and creative and have similar communities and, you know, maybe offer an experience within the world of skateboarding or adjacent to the world of skateboarding without actually having to be like really good at skateboarding. And you can maybe live some part of your dream through that pursuit as opposed to having to be a pro skater. So like maybe, and I do see a lot of that now. Like I see a lot of that now where, you know, maybe even just going back to me, like crossing over from like being a skater to working at DC, like it felt like maybe corny. It felt corny almost, you know what I mean? To just be like, well, okay, like I have to do, like this is what I have to do now to like kind of hang around and be a part of this thing. You know, you just, but like, I don't know, like hopefully that stigma's not there. We're like, hey, and you see it, man. You see so many talented ass people that are like really good, that fucking great skaters, but that are just content with like, you know, helping on the social media side of things or like just some facet of like, you know, how this thing comes to life and the world we've created that, you know, they seem content with it. So I would say that's probably, it's okay to live your dream through skateboarding by not being a pro skater.
Yeah, exactly. There's many other ways to kind of live it. For sure.
Yeah.
For me, of course, like doing this podcast is a way for me to be a little part of, skateboarding culture.
Yeah, you're an example of that for sure.
Yeah,
right?
And it's great. I mean, I was never going to be a pro skater, but I was never good enough. But, and I'm talking to you and I'm talking to a lot of cool people and I'm so grateful for it,
Mm-hmm.
So I think, if you apply yourself and you can definitely figure out other ways to, find a little place for you, in skateboarding.
And in some ways, it maybe makes the skating even more fun.
For sure. Because it releases the pressure from, having to be incredible at skating, which...
And that's another thing, like, going back to kind of what I was saying earlier is, like, I actually do, I kind of joke about, like, going down the rabbit hole in front of my kids, and, like, that does happen. But, like, I am legitimately, like, having a lot of fun, like, doing this because there really is no pressure. I'm just putting the pressure on myself because I want to challenge myself, and I know I have the ability to do certain things. But, like, at the end of the day, like, it's still fun because, like, I only have to worry about what I think.
Of course.
Put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's dope, and I look forward to every clip you put out. It's always a lot of fun, and it's very inspiring. Please keep them coming.
Honestly, the thing I think people recognize the most is like, man, you still slam. And I think that for me, like for where I am, they're just like, dude, that's pretty amazing that like you're still slamming like that and like you're still getting up and keeping going. Because I think like that's where people get stuck is they're like, I can't take a slam. Like, I can't fucking take those slams anymore. And I'm not out there trying to do the fucking craziest shit, but I'm still fucking slamming like I'm out there trying to do the craziest shit. And so, I think like that. And obviously everybody's built a little bit different, but I've been very fortunate to like be able to like weather those slams in a way that like don't deter me or take me out for long periods of time. So that's like where my sort of threshold now is like, dude, if I can still take these slams and like get up and keep moving and not have, Mike mentioned it with my back, like my, I was the first slam I really took where I was like, okay, I'm not scared of my back anymore. That unlocked so much for me.
Yeah.
Your body's pretty fucking resilient. If you do like, if you do a little bit to like, put the right stuff in it, your body's pretty resilient. So you can do it definitely. I mean, there's people out there that are way past me that are still doing it at like a pretty like admirable level.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's incredible to see. Like, even I keep seeing Lance Mountain footage every now and then. Like, it's mind blowing. I think he just turned 60, right? Just recently. So
maybe more. I don't know, but like. I mean, again, think of like just there's fucking 10 people in the world that probably not even 10 people in the world at that age that can like do an invert, do a fucking frontside invert over the channel in a pool still at that. Like, that is fucking insane. Like, I don't know when the last time he did a frontside invert over the channel of a pool was, but like he I'm sure he hasn't done his last one yet, put it that way. Yeah, which is pretty amazing.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all these cool stories. And
no doubt. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's it for my conversation with Kelly. Follow him on Instagram at BirdsideView to keep an eye on his upcoming clips and treat yourself to his early 90s parts on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon for a new episode of Beyond Board.